Chapter 650. Ji Luofei greets Lord Sacred Master. After Ji Luofei followed Mi Jin inside, she quickly bowed. The Sacred Master sitting above was none other than Mi Hui, the one who had told Ningqing to get lost. However, compared to before, her imposing aura was much more condensed and powerful. Although the Eternal Realm and the Life and Death Realm only differed by a single realm, the difference in strength was like night and day. Mi Hui looked at Ji Luofei from head to toe and spoke slowly, "Are you Ji Luofei, Ningqing's Dao companion?" "Yes, Ningqing is this junior's husband." Ji Luofei replied with even more respect. "Oh, when Ningqing got trapped in the changing Earth Mountain, how did he escape?" Mi Hui's tone remained flat. Ji Luofei quickly replied, "My husband had a void-cleaving escape talisman, which allowed him to escape." Mi Hui nodded, "I see. You can go back." Ji Luofei didn't come here to answer a few questions from Mi Hui. She came here to ask for Mi Hui's consent to arrange Shi Qianghua to cultivate under the everlasting sacred tree. Therefore, how could she dare to withdraw at this time? She quickly bowed again and spoke, "Lord Sacred Master, Senior Apprentice Sister Qianghua is now in danger because she used the Forbidden Life technique, soul concealment. I ask Sacred Master to show mercy and let Senior Apprentice Sister Qianghua cultivate under the everlasting sacred tree. You can go, I have my own plans." Mi Hui's face sank and spoke with some impatience. "Lord Sacred Master." Seeing that Sacred Master didn't want Senior Apprentice Sister Qianghua to cultivate under the sacred tree, Ji Luofei felt anxious and called out in a slightly louder tone. "Get lost. A slut who has an affair with a man dares to disobey my decree." Mi Hui's expression immediately turned ugly and she raised her hand and waved it. Ji Luofei flew out like a broken kite and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. "Senior Apprentice Sister Sacred Master." Mi Jin quickly stepped forward to plead. Mi Hui looked at Mi Jin with a gloomy expression and spoke, "Mi Jin, you're getting more and more unreasonable. In the future, don't bring this kind of woman who has an affair with a man into my sacred ground." Mi Jin didn't dare to refute. She bowed and said, "Senior Apprentice Sister Sacred Master Qianghua. The everlasting sacred tree is the most precious treasure of my holy land." Qianghua did not abide by the rules, made friends with demons, and entangled with men. How could she be qualified to be a saintess? She is even less qualified to cultivate under the everlasting sacred tree. This matter is not to be mentioned again in the future. Mi Hui said with a very dissatisfied tone. Hearing the Sacred Master even say such words, Mi Jin did not dare to say anything else and quickly bowed. She thought that the Sacred Master valued Saintess Qianghua a lot, but in fact, the Sacred Master had always valued Saintess Qianghua. Who knew that the Sacred Master would have such an attitude towards Sacred Maiden Qianghua after advancing to the Eternal Realm? Compared to before, it was like heaven and earth. Seeing that Mi Jin didn't continue to talk about the sacred lady, Mi Hui nodded and her expression eased up a bit. "There are too many guests here today. You have to entertain them. At the same time, my everlasting sacred shrine will have to choose another sacred lady." "Yes." Mi Jin bowed and retreated. In the past, Sacred Master had always been domineering, but she felt that there was still a bit of a human touch to her. However, the current Holy Master felt very unfamiliar to her. Not only was he domineering, but he also had an air of supremacy about him. Wait. Mi Hui called out to Mi Jin again. Mi Jin felt happy in her heart. She actually liked Saintess Qianghua a lot, but she also felt very afraid of Ningqing. She did not want everlasting sacred shrine to become enemies with Ningqing, nor did she want Qianghua to fall. Once the Sacred Master did not allow Shi Qianghua to cultivate under the everlasting sacred tree, Qianghua would definitely fall. At that time, the everlasting sacred shrine would definitely become enemies with Ningqing. Moreover, it would be a deep hatred. A trace of indifference appeared on Mi Hui's face as she looked at Mi Jin and spoke. Qianghua ignored the kindness of my sacred shrine and continued to entangle herself with a man. She even used a forbidden technique, which seriously violated the rules of my sacred shrine. Now that she has received the retribution she deserves, you can go and give her a quick death. Also, take care of that Ji Luofei. As for Ning Cheng, take the opportunity of my grand ceremony to issue a wanted order. The reason why Mi Hui said those words was that she had not come out yet. Once she came out, she would know that Ning Cheng's wanted order had already been issued to every corner. Ah! Mi Jin looked at the sacred master in shock. She did not think that the sacred master would be so ruthless. Not only did she want to kill Shi Qianghua, but she also wanted to kill Ji Luofei. In case she did this, when Ning Cheng returned in the future, would the everlasting sacred shrine even have a speck of dust? With Ning Cheng's formidable potential, it would not be impossible for him to reach the eternal realm. However, with the strength of the sacred master who had advanced to the eternal realm, she did not dare to say that Ning Cheng, a cultivator who had not even reached the heaven-seated realm, could pose a threat to her. It would be equivalent to slapping the sacred master's face. Little sister Luofei. Shi Qianghua sat weakly in the room and called out when she saw Ji Luofei coming in. She immediately felt something wrong and stood up with the help of a chair. Luofei, are you hurt? Ji Luofei quickly stepped forward to support Shi Qianghua and spoke with some eagerness. Big sister Qianghua, sacred master did not allow you to cultivate under the everlasting sacred tree. Moreover, she even injured me with a slap. I'm afraid that she would kill us. Moreover, Ji Luofei had been trapped in the bridge of storms for many years and was no longer a simple cultivator who did not understand anything. Shi Qianghua's eyes flashed with a trace of despair, before she slowly sat down and spoke. I finally understand why Uncle Master Mi Chen would rather leave the changing earth mountains than stay in the everlasting sacred shrine. It turns out that she was right. Big sister Qianghua, when I came here, Senior Apprentice Sister Yi told me that someone seems to have issued a wanted order for Ning Cheng. I'm afraid that we can't stay here. Once someone comes to know that Ning Cheng is our husband, it would not be good for us. Ji Luofei's tone turned even more worried. At this moment, Jing Yi rushed in anxiously. Senior Apprentice Sister Yi. Shi Qianghua quickly called out. Jing Yi spoke up anxiously, I just saw the wanted poster. It's definitely Ning Cheng. It's definitely the work of a great person. Junior Apprentice Sister Qianghua, you should quickly leave with Junior Apprentice Sister Luofei. Shi Qianghua spoke up calmly, does Sacred Master also want to kill me? Jing Yi did not answer Shi Qianghua's words. Instead, she took out a talisman and stuffed it into Shi Qianghua's hand. Senior Apprentice Sister Qianghua, Uncle Master Mi Jin left this for me. She wants you to quickly leave the everlasting sacred shrine. Many thanks, Senior Apprentice Sister Yi. Many thanks, Uncle Master Mi Jin. Ji Luofei took the escape talisman from Shi Qianghua's hand and did not wait for Shi Qianghua to speak before putting Shi Qianghua on her back. The everlasting sacred shrine, at this moment, was overflowing with joy. No one cared about Ji Luofei and Shi Qianghua leaving. As for Sacred Master Mi Hui, she would not put these two ants in her eyes. In a celestial river battleship, Ji Luofei took in a deep breath and spoke, we finally escaped. Big Sister Qianghua, why did Jing Yi help us? Senior Apprentice Sister Yi and I have always been inseparable. Besides, my husband also saved her life. Although it was Uncle Master Mi Jin's intention, but for her to help me this time, she also took a great risk. Shi Qianghua spoke with a sigh, but before she could finish her words, she immediately fell backwards. Ji Luofei turned anxious and quickly held Shi Qianghua up while calling out anxiously, Big Sister Qianghua. It was not the first time for Ning Cheng to use the mysterious yellow bead to escape into a spatial collapse. According to his experience, as long as he waited for a while, he would be able to escape from the chaotic spatial collapse and enter a stable zone. But this time, it was beyond Ning Cheng's expectations. Ning Cheng had stayed in the mysterious yellow bead for nearly 5 or 6 days, yet the mysterious yellow bead was still tumbling about due to the spatial storms and whirlpools. After another 2 days, Ning Cheng no longer kept an eye on the situation outside. Instead, he took out a perpetual moon pill and began cultivating inside the mysterious yellow bead. Cultivating inside the mysterious yellow bead, not only did one's cultivation speed increase, but one's comprehension ability also increased by several times compared to cultivating outside. Ning Cheng had a deep understanding of this. Initially, he had only cultivated inside the mysterious yellow bead for a few months before reaching the middle level of the undead realm. If he had cultivated outside, even with enough perpetual moon pills and the help of the mysterious yellow aura, it would have taken him at least a few years to reach the middle level of the undead realm. Daoist Crow's inheritance had a huge effect on Ning Cheng. Even if he consumed more cultivation resources, these 10 million perpetual moon pills were enough for him to cultivate for a while. 4 months later, Ning Cheng directly rushed into the late stage of the undead realm. 7 months later, Ning Cheng's cultivation reached the full circle of the undead realm. After reaching the full circle of the undead realm, the celestial essence surging within his body made Ning Cheng want to find a heaven-seated starry sky demonic beast and fight it out to see how powerful his celestial essence had grown. On the 8th month, Ning Cheng stopped cultivating. His cultivation had completely stabilized at the full circle of the undead realm, and just 1 step away from crossing the tribulation and entering the heaven's mandate realm. Ning Cheng knew that he was different from other cultivators. Other cultivators did not need to cross the tribulation from the undead realm to the heaven's mandate realm, but he needed to cross the tribulation. The mysterious yellow bead did not seem to be as turbulent as before, and Ning Cheng could barely explore it with his spiritual consciousness. The number of spatial vortexes outside had also decreased a lot, and spatial dislocations and storms had also disappeared. A few days later, Ning Cheng rushed out of the mysterious yellow bead and put it back into the depths of his Zifu. At this time, apart from some scattered meteorite flows and some simple void wind edges, he could no longer see any spatial vortexes or cracks. Ning Cheng guessed that he must have come out of the spatial crack. Passing through a planar interface's spatial crack, the mysterious yellow bead had tumbled for 8 months. He did not know how far he had traveled, or if this place was still the same part of the universe's starry skies. Whether it was or not, the most important thing for Ning Cheng was to find a place to cross the tribulation and advance to the heaven's mandate realm first. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept out and found nothing but the void around him, without any markings or any battleships or flight-type weapons. 10 days later, Ning Cheng stopped on top of a broken meteorite. As there was no land here, he could only cross the tribulation in the void. However, Ning Cheng did not worry about it. It was not the first time for him to cross a tribulation in the void. Moreover, he believed that with his formidable strength, crossing a heaven's mandate thunder tribulation should not be a problem. Chapter 651. The perpetual moon pills transformed into a celestial essence whirlpool, and Ning Cheng did not need to stimulate it at all before it completely poured into Ning Cheng's body. Ning Cheng's cultivation had already reached the peak of the undead realm, and the celestial essence condensed within his body had long since begun to search for a source for a breakthrough. At this moment, Ning Cheng stood on the broken meteorite and felt the celestial essence within his body rumbling. It turned out that every time he broke through a realm, he needed to blast open the barrier between realms and stimulate his celestial essence to grow stronger. But this time, he did not even try to break through the cultivation barrier. Instead, the celestial essence naturally blasted open the shackles on his cultivation. With the cultivation barrier blasted open, Ning Cheng absorbed the piles of perpetual moon pills outside at a faster rate, which then turned into celestial essence. Boom boom. But before his celestial essence could reach its peak, lightning arcs descended. Ning Cheng did not even prepare any defensive measures. Originally, he had advanced through the tribulation. This time, he advanced first before facing the thunder tribulation, which did not pose any challenge at all. From this, one could see how heaven-defying his mysterious yellow bead was. This time, he had advanced completely within the mysterious yellow bead. Because of the heaven-defying nature of the mysterious yellow bead, he could advance first before facing the thunder tribulation. The dense and thick lightning arcs fell on Ning Cheng's body, but it only tore apart Ning Cheng's clothes before turning them into thunder sources for Ning Cheng to absorb. After the first wave of dozens of lightning arcs, Ning Cheng only had a few bloodstains on his body except for his slightly burnt hair. As Ning Cheng circulated his celestial essence, those bloodstains disappeared without a trace. As if it knew that this thunder tribulation had no effect on Ning Cheng, the second wave of thunder tribulation was not much stronger than the first wave of thunder tribulation. It only contained a dozen more lightning arcs. As for the thunder beads and thunder waterfalls that Ning Cheng had encountered before, he could not see them at all. Ning Cheng felt a little disappointed in his heart. He could only crazily absorb these thunder sources and then simulate them into his own lightning arcs to attack. As for using the lightning arcs of this thunder tribulation to quench his body, Ning Cheng gave up after thinking about it. This thunder tribulation might be powerful to the extreme for ordinary people, but for him, it was not enough. The rumbling sounds were endless, and lightning arcs fell one after another. These lightning arcs, in addition to consolidating his cultivation, were used by Ning Cheng to condense his own thunder techniques. It was just that he did not have an inheritance of thunder magic, and he had completely figured it out by himself. Although this was the most ordinary thunder tribulation that Ning Cheng had ever crossed, in this empty void, the dense lightning arcs still looked very conspicuous. Catcha! As the lightning arcs blasted apart the meteorite under Ning Cheng's feet, Ning Cheng thoroughly consolidated his cultivation. A moment later, the lightning tribulation above his head disappeared without a trace. It was as if the lightning tribulation had come to consolidate his cultivation. Ning Cheng had just cleaned himself up and put on a new set of clothes, when his spiritual consciousness swept out and detected a shadow rapidly flying towards him. A moment later, the shadow stopped in front of Ning Cheng. It was a high-grade Dao artifact airship. On the deck of the flying ship stood 3 cultivators, 1 male and 2 female. One of the young women stood in the front, while a man and a woman stood on her left and right, seemingly the subordinates of this young female cultivator. Ning Cheng's eyes narrowed slightly. He noticed that although the 2 female cultivators were Heaven's mandate cultivators, the male cultivator had already reached the heaven-seated realm. When he killed Shang Moyang, it was under favorable circumstances. Not only that, but he had also used all of his mechanisms. Later, when he fought against Mi Jin suffered a severe backlash and did not dare to use her full strength. At most, she could only bring out 30 to 40% of her cultivation to fight against him. Even so, he still ended up at a disadvantage. Although his cultivation was a few levels higher than before, he still did not feel that he could defeat a heaven-seated cultivator. There was a huge gap between the heaven-seated realm and the heaven's mandate realm, and this gap could not be filled with anything else. Were you the one who caused the lightning arcs to linger around here? Ning Cheng's guess was not wrong. The first person to ask was the female cultivator with Heaven's mandate cultivation standing in front of him. Ning Cheng cupped his fists in a neither arrogant nor humble manner. Yes, I was just trying out my thunder techniques here, which caused a bit of a ruckus. Are you a cultivator with a thunder spiritual root? The female cultivator asked again in surprise. Ning Cheng hesitated for a moment before replying, no, but I have a thunder-attributed magical technique that I can cultivate through a secret method. The female cultivator nodded and did not continue to ask. Ning Cheng already felt polite enough to answer these questions. Under normal circumstances, it was already against the rules for her to ask about other people's spiritual roots and magical techniques. Ning Cheng was just trying to figure out where this place was when the female cultivator asked again, "Are you from the Eternal Night Domain?" Eternal Night Domain? Ning Cheng repeated the words in doubt. But then he reacted and spoke, "I'm a Starry Skies wanderer." After wandering the starry skies for many years, I lost my way and decided to adapt to the situation. Later, I took control of my starry skies battleship and flew for hundreds of years before finally arriving here. Even before meeting the few of you, I had no sense of direction. You actually used a starry skies battleship to fly for hundreds of years and bypass the interface? Which interface did you come from? The female cultivator asked in surprise, apparently shocked by Ning Cheng's words. She did not doubt Ning Cheng's words about flying for hundreds of years. To be able to cultivate to Ning Cheng's level, which one of them had not experienced more than 1,000 years of cultivation. Ning Cheng smiled and scratched his head before speaking with some helplessness, I don't know. I only know that our planet is called Earth. Did you say Earth? The female cultivator asked again in surprise. This time, Ning Cheng felt shocked. If he said Earth, then it meant that he did not want to continue answering the question. If he said Earth, then no one would know about it. Ning Cheng did not expect this female cultivator to have such a big reaction. Did she know about Earth? Do you know about Earth? Ning Cheng quickly asked. He even felt a sense of familiarity. Only those who had experienced the boundless vastness of the universe would understand the insignificance of Earth in the vast universe. The female cultivator shook her head and spoke, I don't know about Earth, but I've heard people talk about this place. Who? Ning Cheng quickly asked. He felt a sense of joy from meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Was there someone else besides him who had left Earth for cultivation? The female cultivator showed a slight smile and spoke, I can talk to you like this because our cultivations are not too different. At that time, that senior inadvertently mentioned Earth, however, I did not dare to ask about it. Therefore, I do not know who that senior was. Maybe that senior just happened to pass through the eternal night domain. Ning Cheng took in a deep breath before cupping his fists and asking, Three Dao friends, what kind of place is the eternal night domain? The female cultivator hesitated for a moment before explaining, the eternal night domain is a void between several interfaces or even positional planes. From this place, one can go to other interfaces or even positional planes. Some of the cultivators who ended up in the eternal night domain escaped, some lost their way like you, and some came here on purpose. Cultivators often leave this place, but cultivators also often come in. Ning Cheng already understood that this meant that he had not yet arrived at another interface. In other words, he was in the middle of two interfaces. Even in this middle zone, one could go to other positional planes. Those who could come to the eternal night domain were obviously not ordinary people. Just like him, if not for the mysterious yellow bead, he would never have reached this place. From the looks of it, it would be best for him not to go to the eternal night domain. Senior apprentice sister, are there many powerhouses in the eternal night domain? Are there any powerhouses in the eternal realm? Ning Cheng did not intend to go to the eternal night domain. It was a dangerous place for him. If he could escape from a powerhouse in the life and death realm, then in front of a powerhouse in the eternal realm, his chances would be very slim. The female cultivator nodded, yes, there are naturally powerhouses in the eternal realm. However, such powerhouses generally would not stay here for long and would try to find a way to leave the eternal night domain. Because this place is the intersection of several positional planes, some of the positional planes' powerhouses are not in the eternal realm. However, their cultivations are definitely not any weaker than the powerhouses in the eternal realm. When Ning Cheng heard this, he felt even more reluctant to go to the eternal night domain. He thanked her once again, many thanks, senior apprentice sister. I don't know if senior apprentice sister has a jade strip with directions to the eternal night domain. Or perhaps an introduction jade strip to the eternal night domain. Although he did not want to go to the eternal night domain now, it did not mean that he would not go there in the future. Once his cultivation grew stronger, he would go to the eternal night domain to inquire about how to return to the grand culmination starry skies. I naturally have a jade strip, but you are only one person. It would still be dangerous for you to go to the Eternal Night Domain alone. My Su clan has been in the Eternal Night Domain for countless years and has a certain foundation. I can see that this friend has extraordinary courage. Why don't you join my Su clan and help each other out? The female cultivator finished with a smile and stared at Ning Cheng. She said that they could help each other out of respect for Ning Cheng. In other words, even if you join my Su clan, you would still have someone to rely on. Otherwise, you would find it difficult to even take a single step in the Eternal Night Domain. Ning Cheng finally understood why this female cultivator spoke so much to him with such a pleasant expression. It turned out that she had taken a fancy to his bravery in wandering the void for hundreds of years and wanted to recruit him as a hired thug for the Su clan. Ning Cheng did not want to offend these three people, so he quickly cupped his fists and spoke, "I'm used to wandering the starry skies and do not intend to go to the Eternal Night Domain for the time being." "Many thanks, senior apprentice sister." The female cultivator stared at Ning Cheng for a while before sighing. Taking out 2 jade strips, she threw them to Ning Cheng and spoke, "In that case, I will not force you. If one day you get tired of wandering in this place, you can come to my Su clan." This female cultivator did not say how to find the Su clan, only that he could go to the Su clan. Ning Cheng guessed that the status of the Su clan should not be small. At least in the Eternal Night Domain, as long as he mentioned the name of the Su clan, he would be able to find it. Ning Cheng took the 2 jade strips and once again cupped his fists. "Many thanks, senior apprentice sister." "Many thanks, several friends." This Ning will take his leave. With that, Ning Cheng's figure flashed slightly before turning into a shadow and disappearing into the distance. Another woman behind this female cultivator gave a snort and spoke, "This person must have some secrets on him, so he does not dare to go to the Eternal Night Domain." The man in the heaven-seated realm spoke up in a calm voice, "Being able to come here, how many of them do not have secrets?" Chapter 652. A few days later, Ning Cheng found a broken starland. This starland was different from the meteorites that flew through the void, as it moved slowly through the void. Using this place as a place for secluded cultivation, it was much better than the meteorites. If one was not careful, the meteorites would collide with other meteorites and break apart. However, this broken starland, although it did not have any celestial essence or spiritual chi, it was relatively safe. Because of its huge surface area, even if an ordinary meteorite hit it, it would not cause much damage. In the temporary cave he dug out, Ning Cheng took out the jade strip about the Eternal Night Domain that the female cultivator had given him. The Eternal Night Domain was somewhat similar to the rootless Black City where he once lived. It's just that the Eternal Night Domain was countless times larger than the rootless Black City and much more stable. It was a relatively complete continent with relatively complete laws, no different from an ordinary planet. If one had to point out a difference, it would be that the Eternal Night Domain did not have any sunlight. The Eternal Night Domain was just a lone starland suspended in the crevice of the void, without any luminous planets to provide sunlight for the Eternal Night Domain. Because of this, the Eternal Night Domain got its name. Therefore, the Eternal Night Domain was filled with clear light stones and clear light array formations. Although there was no sunlight, it was not the same as the Eternal Night Domain. One could even say that there was no night here. The Eternal Night Domain had existed for hundreds of millions of years, and countless cultivators had fallen here. Some of the cultivators had reproduced here and even formed a certain clan. Ning Cheng guessed that the Su clan should be such a clan. Because this place was a bit special, many powerhouses had fallen in the Eternal Night Domain over the years. Because the Eternal Night Domain was located in the crevice of several positional planes, these powerhouses had different realms, but all of them ruled over a region. The difference in realms was only due to the subtle differences in the laws of heaven and earth in each positional plane. It was just a difference in terms of naming. In fact, all paths lead to the same destination. Cultivating to the extreme, one still had to pursue the same goal. However, there were many cultivation resources around the Eternal Night Domain, and some people had even found a perpetual moon pill mountain. It was a pill mountain made up of perpetual moon pills. After countless years of celestial essence chi condensation, the perpetual moon pills on the mountain seemed endless. Ning Cheng shook his head and put away the jade strip. He really wanted to go to the Eternal Night Domain. After all, cultivating in the Eternal Night Domain was much better than this place. Moreover, he could also do some business in the Eternal Night Domain, selling some medicinal pills and weapons in exchange for the perpetual moon pills he needed for cultivation. However, Ning Cheng dispelled the idea. Before advancing to the heaven-seated realm, he didn't want to go to the Eternal Night Domain unless it was a last resort. Since the last time when the mysterious yellow bead was exposed, he had become even more cautious in his heart. Perhaps in the starry sky cities of Grand Culmination Starry Skies, there were still certain rules to follow. However, in the Eternal Night Domain, which was located in the crack between the positional planes, even if someone forcibly grabbed him and searched his body, he would not be able to do anything about it. Not entering the mysterious yellow bead to cultivate, Ning Cheng's speed immediately slowed down a lot. Fortunately, he had a lot of perpetual moon pills and other medicinal pills, as well as the mysterious yellow aura to cleanse his meridians. Even though his speed was much slower than before, it was still far superior compared to the average cultivator. As the number of perpetual moon pills around Ning Cheng continued to decrease, his cultivation also continued to rise. The radial immortal star was a remote planet in the Grand Culmination Starry Skies Night Essence Celestial River. Generally, cultivators with some background would rarely come to this place. Moreover, the Pendant City was a city on the edge of the radial immortal star. Ji Luofei had been hiding with Shi Qianghua in the Pendant City, a city on the edge of this remote planet for 5 years. During these 5 years, Ji Luofei had used up all the cultivation resources that Ning Cheng had left for her and Shi Qianghua. Moreover, with the help of the harmonizing celestial pills, she managed to advance to the celestial bridge realm. One could even say that within the entire Night Essence Celestial River, no cultivator had the same rich cultivation conditions as Ji Luofei. She had access to piles of perpetual moon pills and all kinds of advancement medicinal pills for cultivation. Moreover, when she reached the great circle of celestial gatherer realm, she even had access to a large number of harmonizing celestial pills. Coupled with Ji Luofei's qualifications, which far exceeded the average cultivator, she finally advanced from the celestial novice realm to the celestial bridge realm in 5 years. However, she had almost used up all the perpetual moon pills and some other medicinal pills. If she wanted to go further, she would have to go out and look for more cultivation resources. Senior Apprentice Sister Qianghua, I'm leaving this place. Ji Luofei whispered before sending the unconscious Shi Qianghua into the miniature world. Since Shi Qianghua never woke up, Ji Luofei sealed Shi Qianghua with a restriction and kept Shi Qianghua by her side. She had exchanged 10 harmonizing celestial pills and a bunch of perpetual moon pills for this miniature world. Nevertheless, this miniature world was still a low-level miniature world. If not for elder sister Qianghua, she would never have used so many resources in exchange for a low-level miniature world. When she and Ning Cheng broke up, she had told Ning Cheng to take good care of elder sister Qianghua. Seeing Qianghua in such a state, she felt anxious and terrified. She felt sorry for Ning Cheng and failed to fulfill her promise. Now, the only thing she could do was to improve her cultivation. Ji Luofei walked into the Pendant City's trade union. She initially planned to leave the radial immortal star and explore other places. But before leaving, she changed her mind and deliberately came to the Pendant City's trade union. She had already gotten used to living in the Pendant City and could not adapt to suddenly changing places. If she could find cultivation resources in the Pendant City, she intended to stay here for a while. It would be best if she could cultivate to the Heaven's Mandate realm here. Senior. As soon as Ji Luofei came in, many cultivators bowed and made way for her. In other places, a puny celestial bridge cultivator would not even enter the eyes of others. But in the pendant city, celestial bridge cultivators were supreme existences. Ji Luofei nodded and was just about to look at the big screen to see if there was a better mystic realm or a place with rich cultivation resources when she heard someone talking next to her. The ice immortal ridge suddenly cracked open. I heard that even heaven-seated cultivators came over. Ji Luofei felt surprised. She had lived on the radial immortal star for many years and was naturally no stranger to the ice immortal ridge. Although the ice immortal ridge was called a ridge, it was sealed off by ice and snow all year round. Even a top-grade powerhouse could not open this seal. Forcibly opening it would only cause the radial immortal star to shatter. The radial immortal star was a planet under the grand culmination starry sky, home to tens of billions of people. No cultivator had the courage to forcibly blast open the radial immortal star. Besides, ordinary cultivators could not blast open the radial immortal star. No one knew for how many years the ice immortal ridge had been sealed off. However, Ji Luofei knew that the ice immortal ridge had once cracked open 100,000 years ago. At that time, countless cultivators had entered to look for opportunities. However, the ice immortal ridge quickly closed again, and none of the cultivators who entered came out. Among them, there were even heaven-seated powerhouses. This time, when the ice immortal ridge cracked open again, she suddenly felt the urge to go and take a look. Ji Luofei knew that although she had good qualifications, without the cultivation resources Ning Qing gave her, she could never advance from the celestial novice realm to the celestial bridge realm in 5 years. She wanted to cultivate to the heaven-seated realm as soon as possible to find Ning Qing, or at least to help Ning Qing. Therefore, she had to take some risks. This starry sky was indeed vast and boundless, and there were countless cultivators in this starry sky. With so many cultivators looking for cultivation resources, if she did not want to take risks, where could she find good things for cultivation? If she followed Ning Qing could take care of these things. But now that she was not by Ning Qing's side, she could only do these things by herself. If Ning Qing could risk his life to find cultivation resources, then she, Ji Luofei, could do the same. Thinking of this, Ji Luofei made up her mind. Whether she lived or died, she had to take the risk and go to the ice immortal ridge. Ji Luofei looked up at the big screen as if nothing had happened. Sure enough, the first thing she saw on the big screen was the ice immortal ridge cracking open. Then, many cultivators started looking for teams with the purpose of going to the ice immortal ridge together. Ji Luofei did not plan to form a team with others. She stayed in the guild for a while before turning around and quickly leaving. After half an incense stick worth of time, Ji Luofei finally left the pendant city. She brought out a flight-type weapon and flew directly towards the ice immortal ridge. Bang! Another huge meteorite came crashing down. Ning Qing stood on the broken star where he had gone into seclusion for 5 years and punched out. The violent celestial essence condensed into a powerful fist momentum. Ning Qing's fist momentum blocked the approaching meteorite and immediately slowed it down. Then, Ning Qing's fist intent dispersed, and the meteorite exploded with a bang before disintegrating into pieces. Ning Qing retracted his fist and sighed. During the 5 years of seclusion, he had already used up all the medicinal pills he could use. Even the 10 million perpetual moon pills were not left. Moreover, his cultivation had only reached the late-stage heaven's mandate realm. There was still a long way to go before he reached the full circle of heaven's mandate realm. Although his strength had grown a lot stronger than before, he understood that he would not be qualified to speak before reaching the heaven-seated realm. Without cultivation resources, even if he wanted to go into seclusion, it would not be feasible. He did not want to go to the eternal night domain before advancing to the heaven-seated realm. But at this time, he had to go to the eternal night domain. For Ning Qing, not being able to advance in his cultivation was the most critical thing. As long as his cultivation could continue to advance, he could continue to cultivate in seclusion. In any case, he could not let his cultivation stagnate. Taking out the locational jade strip given to him by the female cultivator, Ning Qing quickly found the location of the Eternal Night Domain. Chapter 653. 3 months later, Ning Qing stood outside the Eternal Night Domain. According to his speculations, the Eternal Night Domain was just like the rootless Black City, a city suspended in the void. But after arriving at this place, Ning Qing realized that his idea was a big mistake. Was this just a city? This was basically a star continent. Even outside the Eternal Night Domain, Ning Qing could feel the majestic and imposing aura. Looking at it from afar, one could see that the Eternal Night Domain's defensive array was filled with lights. Ning Qing was a bit absent-minded. He seemed to be able to see the night view of Jiangzhou, which was also filled with lights. However, this place was billions of miles away from Jiang Prefecture. When he thought of Jiangzhou, he thought of Rulin. He wondered if his younger sister, Rulin, who had come out with him, was doing well. Ning Qing quickly calmed down his mood. In the vast universe, if he wanted to do what he wanted to do, he first needed to have enough strength to keep up. But now, his strength was too weak. Outside the Eternal Night Domain was an empty public square. In Ning Qing's view, this public square was even bigger than the public square outside Culmination Starland. This public square was directly connected to the Eternal Night Domain. Ning Qing carefully landed on the public square. Just as he landed, a white light emerged from under his feet. Ning Qing was startled, and was just about to escape, when 2 figures flew over. "Is this your first time in the Eternal Night Domain?" The cultivator who came over stared at Ning Qing and asked. Ning Qing had already reacted at this time. The white light from a moment ago should have been caused by the control array on the public square. The cultivators who came here before definitely had some kind of array control jade card or something like that. He didn't have a jade card on him, so the array control on the square was glowing white. As Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness penetrated into the public square, he was able to see an array pattern. It looks like his guess was not wrong. At this moment, a dozen spiritual consciousnesses swept over and fell on Ning Qing's body. Some powerful divine consciousnesses definitely surpassed the sky-seated realm. Ning Qing took in a deep breath before cupping his fists and speaking, "It's not my first time coming to the Eternal Night Domain. I'm from the Su clan. Previously, when I was out searching for cultivation resources, I lost one of the rings because of a dangerous situation. If the ring was lost, there would definitely be nothing left. As for the array plate, there would definitely be nothing left." Hearing that it was not Ning Qing's first time in the Eternal Night Domain, and that he was also a member of the Su clan, the 2 cultivators immediately lost interest. One of them spoke to Ning Qing, "Such being the case, then you can go and get a replacement array card." Saying that, the 2 of them simply did not bother to continue to pay attention to Ning Qing, and quickly left. Even the spiritual consciousness that had swept towards Ning Qing also moved away. Apparently, Ning Qing was not the only one who had lost his array card. Ning Qing breathed in a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, the Su clan had a certain status in the Eternal Night Domain. The jade strip that the female cultivator from the Su clan had given him did not mention anything about the jade card required for the first time in the Eternal Night Domain. He didn't know if she had purposely erased it or if she hadn't thought about it. Ning Qing walked into the hall at the edge of the public square and easily saw a huge sign, "Eternal Night Domain Array Controlling Jade Card." Before going to apply for the jade card, Ning Qing deliberately observed the surroundings. He found that this place was not so much a hall for applying for jade cards, but rather a rest stop. Some cultivators were drinking spirit tea or spirit wine while chatting. There were also some cultivators conducting transactions. However, Ning Qing found that no one here used the celestial coins commonly used in the 4 grand starry skies. Most of the cultivators here used starry sky crystals, while a few cultivators used perpetual moon pills. "Hey, why are you here?" Just as Ning Qing was about to go and apply for the Eternal Night Domain Array Formation Jade Card, a surprised voice called out to Ning Qing. Ning Cheng turned around and immediately recognized the female cultivator. She was one of the 3 people he had met before. Ning Cheng greets this senior apprentice sister. Ning Cheng had just said that he was from the Su clan. Now that a person from the Su clan had arrived, he quickly greeted her. So you're called Ning Cheng. Did you come here to congratulate our little miss on her wedding? This female cultivator did not treat herself as an outsider. Since Ning Cheng came here, she immediately thought that Ning Cheng had come here to congratulate the Su clan's little miss on her wedding. When Ning Cheng had just arrived here, many spiritual consciousnesses had already locked onto him, which made him feel even more threatened by the eternal night domain. Now that this female cultivator said that their little miss was going to get married, Ning Cheng immediately followed up with her words, "Yeah, I heard about it from outside and immediately rushed back. I hope I can make it in time." Ning Cheng felt lucky in his heart. This matter was just too coincidental. He had just arrived in the eternal night domain, and the Su clan's little miss was about to get married. Naturally, I can make it in time. I'm here to pick up someone. You can go first, I'll wait for a while. This female cultivator, on hearing that Ning Cheng came here to deliver a gift, her tone immediately turned tactful. Ning Cheng took advantage of the situation and spoke up, "I just came back and don't have an invitation. I don't know senior apprentice sister's name." The female cultivator giggled, took out an invitation and handed it to Ning Cheng. "My name is Ji Min. It's just an invitation. You can go first, I still have to pick up someone." Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept through the invitation and found out that the female cultivator who had given him the jade strip was called Su Baijiao, while the man who was going to marry Su Baijiao was called Duan Gantai. "Many thanks, senior apprentice sister Ji Min. It's just that I've just returned to the eternal night domain and don't have the array controlling jade card." Ning Cheng did have some celestial essence crystals on him, but when he looked at his celestial essence crystals, they did not seem to be very pure. As for perpetual moon pills, he did not even have a single one on him. Since he would have to send a gift later, he might as well ask this Ji Min for a favor. "It's just a small matter, you don't have to buy it. I have some extra here." While speaking, Ji Min took out a jade card and stuffed it into Ning Cheng's hands. "This jade card is anonymous. Just remember to take out the jade card when you return to the eternal night domain." Although Ning Cheng was also a guest, in Ji Min's eyes, Ning Cheng was obviously not an important guest. After stuffing the jade card into Ning Cheng's hands, she hurriedly left. Ning Cheng hung the jade card around his waist and walked out of the public square again. The white light under his feet had already disappeared. He breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, he had finally passed the first hurdle of entering the eternal night domain. In the future, he would also be a person from the eternal night domain. As such, no one would dare to casually inquire about him. Entering the eternal night domain along the spacious void public square, Ning Cheng realized that he had forgotten to ask Ji Min about the location of Su clan. The eternal night domain was not a city, it was a place similar to a starland. There were cities, corner fortresses, and even some sects and forces. Ning Cheng stopped a cultivator in the celestial bridge realm and took out an Alioth pill. "Friend, I lost the jade strip for the eternal night domain. Do you have it? Give it to me." The cultivator, on seeing the grade 4 celestial river pill, the Alioth pill, did not hesitate at all. He took out a jade strip and stuffed it into Ning Cheng's hands before grabbing Ning Cheng's medicinal pill and turning around to leave. Exchanging a Alioth pill for an ordinary jade strip for the eternal night domain, if this wasn't stupid, then what was? However, the cultivator did not go far before he sobered up. Even if the eternal night domain's jade strip was lost, wouldn't it not be enough to exchange it with a medicinal pill? There were simply too many places in the eternal night domain where one could purchase such jade strips. At this moment, he finally reacted. That cultivator must have come to the eternal night domain for the first time. Generally, cultivators who came to the eternal night domain for the first time, as long as they did not have high cultivation, were all fat sheep. Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness swept through the Jade Strip and found that the Su clan resided in the Eternal Night City, the largest city in the Eternal Night domain. According to the map on the Jade Strip, the Eternal Night City was undoubtedly the largest city in the Eternal Night domain, and it was the closest to the Eternal Night public square. Following the directions on the Jade Strip, Ning Cheng arrived outside the Eternal Night City in just the time it took for an incense stick to burn. The Eternal Night City did not have any city walls, only layers upon layers of defensive arrays. After entering the Eternal Night City, under the illumination of the bright light array formation, one could clearly see many festive signboards on both sides of the street, all of them celebrating the wedding of the Su clan's Su Baijiao. Ning Cheng understood that the Su clan had a significant status in the Eternal Night City and even in the Eternal Night domain. There were not many people on the street, but Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness casually swept out and found several heaven-seated powerhouses. He quickly retracted his spiritual consciousness and did not dare to casually sweep out. Walking along the Eternal Night Street for just a few kilometers, a luxurious and imposing gateway appeared in front of Ning Cheng. The words Eternal Night Su Clan were written on the gateway, indicating the status and momentum of the Su clan in the Eternal Night domain. At the entrance of the Su clan, there was a festive atmosphere, with 4 cultivators in the Heaven's Mandate realm standing on either side to welcome guests. Of these 4 cultivators, any one of them had cultivation no worse than Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng took out the invitation and stepped forward. "I'm here to attend Senior Apprentice Sister Baijiao's wedding. Honorable guest, please come in." The 4 cultivators in the Heaven's Mandate realm bowed to Ning Cheng at the same time and then pointed towards the door. Ning Cheng could not bring out the gifts he had prepared, as the 4 cultivators in charge of welcoming guests had no intention of accepting the gifts. Ning Cheng had to give up the idea of giving gifts and followed them through the gate. As soon as he entered the gate, a female attendant came over and bowed to lead the way. At this time, another cultivator came over with an invitation. The 4 people also bowed and invited him through the gate. Similarly, a female cultivator came over to lead the way for this cultivator. Ning Cheng noticed that this cultivator also did not bring any gifts. This cultivator had a heaven-seated cultivation, so Ning Cheng deliberately stopped and let this heaven-seated cultivator walk in front of him. When Ning Cheng stopped, the female cultivator leading the way also stopped. This heaven-seated cultivator did not know that Ning Cheng wanted to follow behind him and see what he did. Thinking that Ning Cheng was a junior showing respect to an elder, he nodded towards Ning Cheng. However, to Ning Cheng's disappointment, the female cultivator in front of him did not follow the heaven-seated cultivator. Instead, after walking for a while, she turned around and walked towards the other side. She quickly brought Ning Cheng through an arched door, before arriving at a huge hall. Rather than saying it was a hall, it would be more accurate to call it a hall. This hall looked even more luxurious. Ning Cheng's gaze swept around and found that nearly 100 people were already sitting in the hall. Seeing that there was no cultivator above the heaven-seated realm here, Ning Cheng realized that although they were all guests, there were still differences. Sky Realm guests obviously wouldn't sit with them. Chapter 654. The female cultivator who led the way led Ning Cheng to a seat and immediately retreated. Someone then automatically served him spiritual tea. The celestial wheels behind Ning Cheng weren't very clear, and his imposing aura didn't look very strong. In the eyes of others, he was at most an undead cultivator. Facing such an ordinary cultivator, the people inside just glanced at him before looking away. No one would care about someone like Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng also didn't have any intention to talk to anyone. Those who could come here to attend Su Baijiao's wedding obviously had some background. With his current status, he couldn't make friends with these people. He quietly sipped his spirit tea while listening to these cultivators talk loudly. Through the conversations of these cultivators, Ning Cheng also learned some things about the Eternal Night domain. He also learned that in the void around the Eternal Night domain, if one was lucky, not only could one find the perpetual moon pill mountain in Pill Pond, but even the permanent essence pill pond. Although Ning Cheng had never seen permanent essence pills, he knew that permanent essence pills were a higher grade cultivation resource compared to perpetual moon pills. It wasn't artificially refined, but condensed from starry sky essence qi over countless years in a specific environment. No impurities, no side effects, only pure cultivation essence qi. This friend, I just heard them say that Senior Ji Zhen obtained a permanent essence pill mountain. If others knew about it, wouldn't they covet it? Ning Cheng whispered to a cultivator in Heaven's Mandate realm beside him. The cultivator glanced at Ning Cheng and spoke with disdain, covet. After Senior Ji Zhen obtained the permanent essence pill mountain, he not only advanced to the eternal realm, but also surpassed the eternal realm. With such power, who would dare covet it? With Senior Ji Zhen's cultivation, he naturally left the crevice of the eternal night domain. Ning Cheng didn't care about the other party's tone and still politely asked, "You said that Senior Ji Zhen obtained a permanent essence pill and could surpass the eternal realm? Isn't permanent essence pill a cultivation medicinal pill? I heard that to surpass the eternal realm, one must achieve it through Tao confirming means. What do you know? With a permanent essence pill mountain, one can naturally reach Tao confirming." The cultivator felt dissatisfied with Ning Cheng's rebuttal. Ning Cheng didn't care about it. But a cultivator with narrow eyes sitting a little further away from Ning Cheng suddenly spoke up, "Don't talk nonsense if you don't know anything. The friend who just asked is right. Permanent essence pills were just medicinal pills for cultivation. No matter how many there were, it couldn't prove one's Tao. Senior Ji Zhen succeeded in reaching the Tao confirming realm because he found an opportunity to reach the Tao confirming realm on the permanent essence pill mountain. Permanent essence pills can't compare to it. I don't know when we'll have such a great opportunity." Another cultivator sighed. Ning Cheng didn't continue to interrupt. He didn't expect that the eternal night domain would have so many pill mountains within the void. From the looks of it, this place was suitable for condensing a pill mountain. In the future, if he could not earn perpetual moon pills in the eternal night domain, maybe he could go out and look for it. However, before going out, he had to investigate the situation in the void around the eternal night domain. With his starry sky wheel, he could definitely go to places that no one had ever gone before. At this moment, a pretty female cultivator walked into the main hall and stood on the main platform before bowing and speaking, "In order to thank all the guests for coming to my Sioux clan as guests, the little miss and her son-in-law will come and toast to all the distinguished guests." The cultivators in the hall immediately stood up and applauded, while Ning Cheng also stood up and applauded behind them. Although Ning Cheng's spiritual consciousness was extremely powerful, he could still hear people whispering behind him, that Duan Gantai is really lucky to be able to marry into the Sioux clan. Don't talk nonsense. Prepare your gifts. It's impolite to talk about the bridegroom here. Someone immediately interrupted the person's discussion. Hearing this, Ning Cheng understood that this Duan Gantai was a son-in-law. Moreover, it wasn't that he didn't want to give gifts at the wedding, but that he wanted to give them all at the same time. Ning Cheng thought about it for a moment and understood what was going on. In this place, everyone wanted to give gifts together. Whoever gave less would not only lose face, but would also be looked down upon by others. This Sioux clan really wasn't reserved at all. In China, people paid particular attention to being reserved, and even gift-giving was a very reserved thing. However, in the eternal night domain, gift-giving directly became a matter of sincerity. Ning Cheng couldn't help but wonder if he could bring out the bottle of medicinal pills he had originally prepared. A moment later, two boys walked into the main hall, holding hands with a man and a woman, and came to the main platform. The woman wore a red shawl and a phoenix coronet on her head, which looked similar to ancient Chinese women getting married. Golden ribbons hung down from the front of the phoenix coronet, which completely covered her face. Ning Cheng recognized her at a glance. This female cultivator was the woman he had met before, who had given him 2 jade strips. When Ning Qing saw the bridegroom next to Su Baijiao, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. This bridegroom looked just too ugly. His nostrils almost reached the sky, and his pair of thick lips protruded out as if he was afraid that others wouldn't notice. Although his eyes were big, they were round and had no edges at all. Thinking of Su Baijiao's charming appearance, Ning Qing couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Even this woman could endure it. Ning Qing didn't know what advantages this Duan Gantai had, that even Su Baijiao of the Su clan had to marry him. As for why Duan Gantai didn't undergo plastic surgery, Ning Qing didn't find it surprising. Cultivators and ordinary people were different. Cultivators cultivated their hearts to defy the heavens. As the saying goes, one's appearance comes from one's heart. Although one's appearance might change after cultivation, this change would never be too big. One could indeed become more handsome after plastic surgery, but as long as one continued to cultivate, one's appearance would return to normal, even more obvious than before. Female cultivators mostly had feminine bodies, which meant that they would have a more subtle effect on their appearance compared to male cultivators. There were even some cultivation methods that made female cultivators more beautiful the more they cultivated. Therefore, among the cultivators in the starry skies, female cultivators were much more beautiful. Moreover, this kind of beauty was truly beautiful and could be passed on to future generations, unlike the beauties of some countries. Although one might look like a decent person, everything would become clear after giving birth to offspring. While Ning Qing observed Su Baijiao and Duan Gantai, Su Baijiao's spiritual consciousness fell on Ning Qing at the same time. Ning Qing quickly retracted his spiritual consciousness and cupped his fists towards Su Baijiao. He knew that Su Baijiao had recognized him. Sure enough, Su Baijiao gave Ning Qing a slight nod, seemingly a little surprised. At the same time, Ning Qing felt an incomparably sharp killing intent sweeping towards him. It was Duan Gantai. This fellow had a strong sensitivity. Ning Qing and Su Baijiao had only exchanged a slight greeting, yet this fellow had already sensed it. No wonder the Su clan wanted to recruit this Duan Gantai. This fellow truly wasn't simple. However, Ning Qing didn't care about it. Duan Gantai was only at the full circle of heaven's mandate realm, so he didn't fear him at all. Meng Yangzi saw Fairy Baijiao 3 years ago and was shocked by her beauty. Today is a joyous occasion, and Fairy Baijiao is even more stunning. Meng Yangzi wishes to congratulate Fairy Baijiao on her wedding, so I present a small gift to express my congratulations. A handsome man in white robes stood up, instantly diverting Duan Gantai's killing intent towards Ning Qing. To be precise, it was after the white-robed man said that Su Baijiao was beautiful that Duan Gantai's killing intent fell on this Meng Yangzi. Ning Qing felt a little speechless. This Duan Gantai was just too sensitive. Meng Yangzi had only praised Su Baijiao's beauty a few times, yet this guy was already filled with killing intent. If someone said a word to Su Baijiao, or did something a little too excessive, then wouldn't this guy immediately explode? How would he live with Su Baijiao in the future? Meng Yangzi was the first to send out a gift, and a female cultivator standing behind Su Baijiao immediately came forward with a white jade plate. Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness swept out and saw Meng Yangzi put a ring on the jade plate, along with a list of gifts. The list read, a middle-grade defensive Dao artifact jade hairpin, 100,000 high-grade immortal crystals, 5,000 perpetual moon pills. The ring did not have any restrictions, so Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness seeped into the ring and immediately saw the high-grade immortal crystals. In fact, it looked the same as the starry sky crystals in his ring, but much purer than his starry sky crystals. But this was also normal, as the starry sky crystals in his ring were only low-grade. At this time, Ning Qing also understood that high-grade immortal crystals were just another name for starry sky crystals, which meant that they came from a different positional plane. After the female cultivator received Meng Yangzi's gift, she immediately shouted, Eternal Night Domain's refining Heart Mountain disciple Meng Yangzi presents a middle-grade Dao artifact jade hairpin, 100,000 high-grade immortal crystals, 5,000 perpetual moon pills. Even in Ning Cheng's opinion, this gift list was not light. Unexpectedly, Duan Gantai gave a cold snort and spoke with a muffled voice, "Today is my and Baijiao's wedding day. What do you mean by sending medicinal pills?" Ning Cheng, like the rest of the cultivators, felt stunned. Perpetual moon pills were cultivation resources. Strictly speaking, they were not medicinal pills at all. Besides, even if they were medicinal pills, Duan Gantai, a son-in-law who married into the family, didn't have any subtlety in saying such words on the spot. Others naturally had good intentions in sending gifts, but this fellow treated others' good intentions as malicious intent. Meng Yang's expressions suddenly turned ugly. He had considered giving away perpetual moon pills for a long time. This medicinal pill also had a lot of use to him. Now that he gave it as a gift, not only did others not appreciate it, but they even found fault with him. It was just too much. At this moment, Su Baijiao suddenly spoke up, "Husband, senior apprentice brother Meng gave perpetual moon pills out of goodwill. Besides, perpetual moon pills are not medicinal pills, so it's not inauspicious." Duan Gantai gave a snort and did not continue to find fault with her. Su Baijiao did not seem to care about Duan Gantai's cold snort. Instead, she nodded to the female cultivator who received the gift. The female cultivator who received the gift saw it and continued to read aloud, "Meng Yang's generous gift, please enter the inner residence and take a seat of honor." Meng Yang's complexion turned a little better. He stood up and cupped his fists towards the rest of the people before following the female cultivator who led the way out of the hall. Ning Cheng understood that only those who gave generous gifts could enter the inner residence as guests. Otherwise, they could only sit here for a while before leaving. It was simply too straightforward. It was just that the person who gave the most gifts would enter the inner residence. Chapter 655. With Meng Yangze taking the lead, the cultivators behind him quickly took out their gifts. Most of them sent immortal crystals, high-grade starry sky spiritual grasses, various Tao artifacts, starry sky battleships and the like. However, no one sent any more perpetual moon pills, which made Ning Cheng feel a bit amused. This Duan Gantai really was a piece of work, cursing back the best gifts. What was the most important thing for a cultivator? Naturally, it was cultivation resources. Perpetual moon pills were a much better cultivation resource for Heaven's Mandate cultivators compared to high-grade immortal crystals. Ning Cheng knew that he had to change his gift. Previously, he had prepared a bottle of grade for Celestial River medicinal pills, harmonizing celestial pills. With Meng Yang's example, if he sent medicinal pills, and not even perpetual moon pills, wouldn't he just be asking for trouble? Sure enough, as Ning Cheng guessed, whoever sent more gifts, the female cultivator receiving the gifts would invite them to sit in the inner residence. This was a matter of face. Many of the cultivators here knew each other. If the people around them were invited to the inner residence, then they could only sit outside. It would be a huge loss of face. However, despite this, not many cultivators entered the inner residence. Not everyone was as rich as Meng Yangze. Most of the cultivators didn't want to lose face, but they couldn't come up with so many things. Ning Cheng didn't care about it. He didn't know anyone here. The only reason he came here to send gifts was because of Ji Min's help. He couldn't tell Ji Min that he came here to attend Su Baijiao's wedding and then disappear after entering the Eternal Night Domain. Ning Cheng had already prepared his gift, which was a mid-grade Celestial River-class battleship. It was also his spoils of war, which made it suitable as a gift. After sending the gifts, he would leave. As for staying here as a guest in the inner residence, he had no interest in it. At this moment, the female cultivator's voice almost made Ning Cheng jump up. Ning Cheng thought that he had heard it wrong and quickly listened carefully. Sure enough, he heard the same words as the second time. Eternal Night Domain's weapon pavilion's Gonyejwa sends 10 drops of purple spring water. Please enter the inner residence. Ning Cheng had been searching for the Purple Spirit Spring, but many people had never even heard of it. But today, he heard the words Purple Spring Water. He wondered if this Purple Spring Water was the Purple Spirit Spring. But no matter what, Ning Cheng would not let go of the opportunity to get to know this Gongye. Ning Cheng couldn't understand why only a few people in Grand Culmination Starry Skies knew about the Purple Spring Water, but even a female attendant here knew that it was a good thing. Gongye had already followed the female attendant into the inner residence, and at this time, there weren't many cultivators who hadn't sent gifts. Ning Cheng saw the female cultivator in charge of receiving the gifts arrive in front of him, and quickly took out a ring and placed it on the white jade tray, while simultaneously engraving a list of gifts onto it. When the female cultivator who received the gifts saw Ning Cheng's list of gifts, her eyes immediately lit up and she immediately sang out in a loud voice, "Eternal Night Domains Ning Cheng sends a Starry Sky Grade 9 Fire Wind Crow's Tail Feather, a middle grade defensive Dao artifact, a middle grade Celestial River class battleship." At this moment, almost all eyes swept towards Ning Cheng. A rogue cultivator with an unremarkable cultivation had unexpectedly sent out so many good things. Not to mention anything else, just the tail feathers of a Starry Sky Grade 9 demonic beast, Flame Wind Crow, were worth a lot of money, which far exceeded the gift list of almost all cultivators. Even Su Baijiao's gaze fell on Ning Cheng, feeling amazed by Ning Cheng's generosity and wealth. She even decided to talk to Ning Cheng later and convince him to stay in the Su clan. Ning Cheng was indeed a cultivator in the Celestial River realm, but this cultivator not only had great potential, but also could take out so many good things at will, indicating that his net worth was countless times richer than the things he brought out. The only one with a hostile gaze was Duan Gantai. He had seen Ning Cheng greet Su Baijiao before, and now Ning Cheng sent out such a generous gift, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. However, Ning Cheng's gift did not contain any medicinal pills, which meant that he couldn't find an excuse. "Honorable guest Ning Cheng, please take a seat in the inner residence." After the female cultivator in charge of receiving the gifts said those words, Ning Cheng finally felt relieved. The reason why he sent out a middle-grade Dao artifact and a Celestial River-class battleship was because he feared that Duan Gantai would say that the Flame Wind Crow's tail feather was not enough. For the sake of the Purple Spirit Spring, why would he care about a middle-grade Dao artifact and an ordinary Celestial River-class battleship? Middle-grade Dao artifacts might be precious to others, but for him, it was something that he could easily refine. He already had 20 or 30 Starry Sky Grade 9 Flame Wind Crow's tail feathers in his ring. Ning Cheng followed the female cultivator into the inner residence and came to a wooden hall. Although this hall did not look as luxurious as the one outside, Ning Cheng could feel the difference as soon as he entered. This was because the house exuded a strong vitality. Ning Cheng felt sure that the wood used to build this house was not simple and definitely a good material. For the Su clan to use this kind of wood to build a house, it showed that they were rich and overbearing. There were dozens of cultivators sitting inside the house. Ning Cheng casually glanced around and saw several heaven-seated powerhouses. Not seeing any life and death or eternal powerhouses, Ning Cheng finally felt a little relieved. He naturally didn't think that the Su clan did not have any guests in the life and death or eternal realm. If these powerhouses were not accompanied by someone, then these powerhouses must have sent people to deliver gifts. The female cultivator led Ning Cheng to a seat, but Ning Cheng did not sit down according to her instructions. Instead, he nodded to her and took the initiative to walk over to Gongye's side and sit down. The female cultivator, on seeing Ning Cheng find a seat, did not say anything and just offered him some spiritual tea before taking the initiative to withdraw. The guests sitting inside should be considered as distinguished guests of the Su clan. Except for 7 or 8 cultivators in the heaven-seated realm and some very important cultivators, the rest were like Ning Cheng, cultivators with relatively heavy gifts. The cultivators in the heaven-seated realm naturally sat at the head of the table and chatted with each other. As for Ning Cheng and the other cultivators who had not reached the heaven-seated realm, even if they wanted to speak, they had to speak in a low voice. Gongye Zhuo, seeing Ning Cheng deliberately walk over and sit down next to him, nodded to Ning Cheng. Ning Cheng cupped his fists towards Gongye Zhuo with a smile. Rogue cultivator Ning Cheng greets brother Gongye. Ning Cheng's politeness quickly aroused Gongye Zhuo's goodwill, and he also returned the courtesy. I don't dare. It is Gongye Zhuo's honor to meet brother Ning. Ning Cheng, of course, knew that Gongye Zhuo spoke out of politeness, but he didn't care about it. Instead, he asked in a low voice, Brother Gongye, I just saw you take out the purple Yin spring water. What is that? Why do others know about it, but I've never seen it before? Gongye Zhuo, on seeing Ning Cheng's sincere attitude, also spoke up. Brother Ning might have been training outside and only recently returned to the eternal night domain. 100 years ago, two powerful Tao-confirming cultivators fought their way to the outside of the eternal night domain. These two people were a man and a woman, with amazing cultivation. I'm afraid that even an eternal-level Starry Sky Emperor would not be able to stand up to such powerhouses. At that time, outside the eternal night domain, the female cultivator asked the man to hand over the purple Yin spirit spring bead. However, the man refused. As a result, the two of them ended up fighting outside the eternal night domain. At this point, Gongye Zhuo's tone turned even lower. Did you know? It turns out that there are two broken planets outside the eternal night domain. These two planets are the two array entrances of the eternal night domain. In the middle of these two planets, there is also a beautiful spiritual spring pool. This starry sky spiritual spring pool is not used for cultivation, but to set off the imposing aura and spirituality of the eternal night domain. Later, when the two powerhouses fought, even if they were far away from the eternal night domain, the aftermath of the celestial essence still turned the two broken planets into nothingness. Otherwise, the eternal night domain would have looked much more imposing than it does now. Fortunately, the two cultivators knew that there were many cultivators in the eternal night domain. Therefore, after destroying the array entrances of the two planets of the eternal night domain, they quickly moved away. When Ning Cheng heard about the purple Yin spirit spring bead, he started to suspect that the purple Yin spirit spring bead had something to do with the purple Yin spirit spring bead. He asked even more eagerly, Brother Gongye, how did you get the purple Yin spirit spring bead? Gongye Zhuo spoke with a slightly proud tone, speaking of which, the purple Yin spirit spring bead has something to do with the two cultivators who fought. That powerful female cultivator senior seemed to be called Ji Shi. At that time, the man took out a bead and sneered, saying that if you have the ability, then come and take it. Unexpectedly, the man got too carried away and ended up getting sneak attacked by the female cultivator called Ji Shi. The purple Yin spirit spring bead then fell into the starry sky spiritual spring pool outside the eternal night domain. That female cultivator moved very quickly. She snatched the purple Yin spirit spring bead first and then quickly escaped. The man felt angry and chased after her. Later, there was no more news about the two of them. The purple Yin spirit spring bead soaked in the purple Yin spirit spring bead. So much? Ning Cheng's shocked voice grew a little louder, which immediately attracted a lot of attention. But Ning Cheng didn't care about it at this time. Gongye Zhuo whispered, yes, that starry sky spiritual spring pool became special because the purple Yin spirit spring bead fell in it. The water in the spiritual spring pool can help people comprehend spirit techniques and even help body-forging cultivators strengthen their meridians. This spring water naturally becomes precious. I obtained these 10 drops by accident. Today, I took this opportunity to give them to Fairy Baijiao. Ning Cheng took in a breath of cold air. No wonder everyone in this place knew about the purple Yin spirit spring bead. He didn't expect that the purple Yin spirit spring bead would come from such a place. The purple Yin spirit spring bead had only fallen into the purple Yin spirit spring bead, yet it caused such a huge effect. Didn't this mean that the purple Yin spirit spring bead was too powerful? In any case, Ning Cheng felt sure that even if the purple-ine spirit spring bead wasn't the purple-ine spirit spring bead, the purple-ine spirit spring bead was the thing he was looking for. It wasn't just because of the same name, but also because the functions of the two were similar. Strengthening spirit techniques and reshaping the meridians. The purple-ine spirit spring bead couldn't reshape the meridians because the purple-ine spirit spring bead only soaked in it for a moment. But where could he find Ji Shi? Besides, even if he found Ji Shi, how could he take back the purple-ine spirit spring bead? That Ji Shi and another man fought outside the Eternal Night Domain and even destroyed the Eternal Night Domain's array entrance. Moreover, no Eternal Starry Sky Emperor came out to stop them, which showed that their cultivations far surpassed Eternal Starry Sky Emperors. Facing an Eternal Realm Holy Emperor, he had to escape. But facing Ji Shi, a cultivator stronger than an Eternal Starry Sky Emperor, he wouldn't even have a chance to escape. Thinking of this, Ning Cheng's eyes dimmed. In the end, his strength was just too low. Chapter 656. While Ning Cheng was still worried about the purple-ine spirit spring in the Eternal Night Domain, Ji Luofei had already arrived at the periphery of the Ice Immortal Ridge. After Ji Luofei pushed open the door and entered, the Ice Immortal Ridge changed again. The crack in the Ice Immortal Ridge slowly closed again. Many cultivators who wanted to enter the Ice Immortal Ridge hurriedly retreated and watched as the crack slowly closed. Ji Luofei knew about the Ice Immortal Ridge, but she had never come here before. He only knew that this place was sealed in ice all year round, so he couldn't see the slightest thing inside. The ice lake was clearly in the Ice Immortal Ridge, but it did not freeze. Above the frozen lake, there was a thick fog that was several times colder than the surrounding ice rocks. This kind of chill carried a trace of the aura of death. Perhaps after a while, she would not be burnt to ashes by the flames of chi deviation, but would be turned into ashes by the cold of the frozen lake. Ji Luofei flew for several days, however, not only did she not find any usable cultivation resources, she also could not find any mystic realm. 2 days later, she felt her celestial essence going out of control, and her entire body felt like it was on fire. The reopening of the Ice Immortal Ridge on the radial immortal star had indeed attracted the attention of many people. However, this time it was exactly the same as the last time it was opened, and the time it took for it to close was even shorter. In just a few months, the crack closed again. Just like last time, none of the cultivators who entered the Ice Immortal Ridge came out. Ning Cheng left a spiritual consciousness message on the spot where Su Baijiao had pinched, "Meet me at the Eternal Night City's Eternal Sand Rest Stop tomorrow night. I have something you need." Bang! At this time, Ji Luofei's feet touched the ground. She had already reached the bottom of the lake. Su Baijiao and Duan Gantai walked side by side behind this man and followed him inside. While Ji Luofei was still hesitating, several figures quickly passed by her and rushed into the crack in the Ice Immortal Ridge. Poof! The terrifying flames swept through Ji Luofei's Zifu, causing her Zifu to instantly suffer heavy damage. Unable to bear it any longer, she spat out a mouthful of hot blood. His blood splattered on the icy rocks beside him, making a sizzling sound. His blood was so hot, yet it was unable to melt even the slightest bit of the ice. If it weren't for her flying for several days in the Ice Immortal Ridge, which stimulated her celestial essence, her cultivation deviation might not have happened so quickly, but it would have broken out in the future. Was this the crack of the Ice Immortal Ridge? Ji Luofei looked at the mouth of the Grim Reaper and subconsciously shuddered. She did not know if it was the right thing to do to go in or not. This kind of burning came from the meridians of her body, as if she would be completely burned to ashes in the next moment. Ji Luofei suddenly felt ashamed of her own hesitation, as the others did not hesitate to rush in. She had made up her mind to come and had even specially prepared for a period of time before entering the Ice Immortal Ridge. Now that she was at the entrance of the Ice Immortal Ridge, she actually didn't dare to enter. After entering, Ji Luofei felt a horrifying chill wrapping around her body. She could only continue to stimulate her celestial essence to fly inside. Although she had advanced from the celestial novice realm to the celestial bridge realm in just 5 years, she had forcibly absorbed a massive amount of celestial essence chi. However, her foundation was far from reaching such a level. In addition to the terrifying coldness, it also gave people a strong feeling that there must be a lot of good things inside. Ji Luofei gave out a sigh. She was in a hurry to improve her cultivation as soon as possible. She had crazily absorbed perpetual moon pills and swallowed other medicinal pills, but she had forgotten that haste makes waste in cultivation. Even if others had so many cultivation resources, it would take them 50 years or even 500 years to complete the consumption. However, she had forcibly completed it in just 5 years. With a powerful expert like Su Yukinghong here, Duan Gantai's hidden killing intent could not escape from Su Yukinghong. Ning Cheng secretly shook his head. Couldn't this fellow bear it a little longer? A rich wine fragrance filled the entire hall in an instant. This wine fragrance gave people an indescribable lingering feeling. This was definitely a good wine. Even people who didn't understand wine would know that this was a first-class wine. Ning Cheng reached out and took Su Baijiao's wine glass. However, he did not expect that Su Baijiao would gently pinch his finger. Although it was just a touch, Ning Cheng knew that Duan Gantai had already seen it. Although the flames in her body burned fiercely, Ji Luofei couldn't help but think of Ning Cheng. She couldn't help but think of the tenderness and lingering feelings between her and Ning Cheng. This only made the flames in her body burn even faster and the temperature rise even faster. When Ji Luofei felt a trace of chill, her heart sank again. The heart devil's flame caused by the devil's chi deviation had also been offset by the chill. Even if her cultivation had fallen, without the devil's heart flame, she couldn't resist the chill at all. "Dear, I'm leaving first." After Ji Luofei spoke this sentence in despair, she looked back at the endless ice road. She then slanted towards a fork in the ice cave and jumped into an ice lake. The cultivators inside the ice immortal ridge could only see the ice rocks on the left and right moving slowly, while the space around them grew smaller and smaller. Duan Gantai carried the wine pot and wine glass, while Su Baijiao delivered one glass after another to the guests. Just like this, they quickly arrived in front of Ning Cheng. As the devil's flame and the chill continued to fuse, the devil's flame within Ji Luofei's body gradually weakened. At the same time, her cultivation also weakened under the collision of the ice and fire. Before she even reached the bottom of the ice lake, her cultivation had already fallen from the celestial bridge realm to the celestial gatherer realm. However, it still didn't stop, and her cultivation still continued to decline. What surprised Ji Luofei was that after she entered, she couldn't see any other cultivators. No matter how long she flew, no matter how fast she moved, she was the only one in the surroundings except for the occasional forks in the road. After spurting out another mouthful of blood, Ji Luofei's eyes flashed with despair. She finally understood what was going on. For Ji Luofei, rather than burning to death due to the devil's flame, she might as well take the initiative to jump into the ice lake filled with the aura of death. She could feel the aura of death because the ice lake was too cold. Because of this cold, it brought about the aura of death. How did Su Baijiao know what he needed? Ning Cheng looked up in shock, but Su Baijiao had almost finished the toast. Her cultivation method was powerful enough to absorb these resources, but her body couldn't bear it. The crack in the ice immortal ridge seemed endless. As Ji Luofei flew all the way, she could see some forks in the road from time to time. Some of these forks led to an ice rock wall, while others led to a small ice lake. However, everything in this place was sealed in ice. Everything in front of her was a snow-white color. Ji Luofei had just fallen into the lake when the cold, which could freeze a body-forging cultivator into nothingness, immediately penetrated Ji Luofei's body. The burning celestial essence flames within Ji Luofei's body collided with the cold, which unexpectedly gave Ji Luofei a comfortable feeling. At this time, all the cultivators remaining in the ice immortal ridge panicked and wanted to quickly retreat. However, even if they retreated quickly, they couldn't keep up with the closing speed of the 3-foot-wide crack. Previously, he had used millions of perpetual moon pills, 5 years, the mysterious yellow origin, and a large number of medicinal pills. However, he still couldn't even step into the heaven's mandate realm. He couldn't even cultivate to the full circle. This speed might be fast for others, but for Ning Cheng, it was too slow. He couldn't continue like this. When the ice rocks on both sides closed, the trapped cultivators finally understood why none of the cultivators who entered the ice immortal ridge came out. The ice rocks on both sides were extremely hard. Even cultivators in the heaven-seated realm could only watch as the ice rocks closed up and turned into nothingness. Ning Cheng immediately thought of the none to depend on wine. He had always wanted to drink a pot of the real none to depend on wine. However, he had always been running around to improve his cultivation and never had a good opportunity to do so. Ning Cheng still wondered if Duan Gantai's temperament had changed. But when Duan Gantai and Su Baijiao greeted the next cultivator, Duan Gantai's intense murderous intent still shrouded over them. Ning Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. He was just thinking what was going on. This guy really was a dog that could not change its nature to eat shit. At this moment, Ji Luofei's cultivation and her celestial essence spiritual consciousness turned into barrels of intense oil that poured into the flames burning within her body. It seemed that the higher her cultivation, the more intense the oil. At this time, Ji Luofei stood outside the ice immortal ridge and saw a crack about 1 foot high and 3 feet wide. As her spiritual consciousness swept in, she couldn't even see the end of it. The icy coldness inside felt as if it wanted to freeze her spiritual consciousness. He hadn't gathered all the wood origin in the mysterious yellow bead yet. Therefore, if he went inside to cultivate, he would easily expose himself. Ning Cheng rubbed his hair in distress and finally clenched his fists. Once exposed, he would use the starry sky wheel to escape. He couldn't afford to waste any more time like this. Distinguished guests, Su Yukinghong is very grateful to my Su clan for attending my daughter Bai Jiao's wedding. In order to express my Su clan's gratitude, my daughter Bai Jiao and my son-in-law Gantai would like to propose a toast to you. After the man who called himself Su Yukinghong finished speaking, he raised his hand and took out a wine pot. At the same time, he opened the spout of the wine pot. At this moment, Ning Cheng's voice and smile once again appeared in Ji Luofei's mind. Her face suddenly showed a calm look, and her figure flashed before disappearing into the icy crack. An iron door appeared in the range of her spiritual consciousness. Ji Luofei, who had already turned purple from the cold, rushed directly towards the iron door and pushed it open. The iron gate actually opened. There were no restrictions, nor were there any obstructions. Just when Ning Cheng thought that Duan Gantai would also reveal a strong killing intent, he saw a smile on Duan Gantai's face. His ugly face didn't show any discomfort. It was as if he wasn't the same person as before. Duan Gantai already paid a lot of attention to him. Now that Su Baijiao acted like this, it would be strange if Duan Gantai didn't notice it. Ning Cheng felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He wasn't afraid of Duan Gantai, but he felt that Su Baijiao did it on purpose. A middle-aged man with a long beard walked into the hall of the wooden house. The cultivators in the hall immediately stopped talking and stood up to greet this cultivator with cupped fists. Ning Cheng also quickly stood up. He didn't use his spiritual consciousness to scan this cultivator. With his vision, he could tell that this cultivator was at least a late-stage life and death expert, or even an eternal-level expert. Chapter 657. Ning Cheng drank the wine in the cup in one gulp, and an indescribable reluctance lingered on his lips. It felt as if he had a kind of attachment and dependence here. At this moment, Ning Cheng had a feeling that if he learned a magical skill or spirit technique at this time, the effect would be much stronger than when he didn't drink. Good wine. Some of the heaven-seated powerhouses exclaimed. Su Yukinghong's voice arrived in time. Many thanks for everyone's appreciation. This is one of the few lingering wine in my Su clan's collection. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to get drunk with everyone. Su Yukinghong will have to leave for a while. Distinguished guests, please make yourselves at home. We will be serving lingering fruits for you to taste. Ning Cheng looked at the empty wine cup and shook his head speechlessly. He liked this wine very much, but there was only one cup of wine. How could he get drunk with it? His guess should be right. Su Yukinghong must have left because he had more important guests to accompany. Compared to heaven-seated powerhouses, it was obviously life and death or eternal realm powerhouses. After Su Yukinghong left, Su Baijiao and Duan Gantai also followed suit. At this time, a maid came forward to deliver lingering fruits, and Ning Cheng also received one. From the name and aura, Ning Cheng guessed that this lingering fruit should be the fruit used to brew lingering wine. Ning Cheng did not eat the spiritual fruit, but took out a jade box and put away the spiritual fruit. He planned to leave the Su clan. Although he did not obtain the Purple Een Spirit Spring, he did obtain some news about the Purple Een Spirit Spring bead, which made this trip worthwhile. Next, he had to work hard to find resources for cultivation and advance to the heaven-seated realm. At this time, a heaven-seated cultivator from the Su clan suddenly stood up and spoke to the cultivators in the wooden hall with cupped fists. Friends, it's rare for everyone to get together. Those who can sit here are all powerhouses of the Eternal Night Domain, or distinguished guests with extraordinary status in the Eternal Night Domain. The Eternal Night Domain and its surrounding void are vast and boundless, and we can all obtain many treasures from it. Maybe everyone has something that the other party needs, but these things are not of much use to us. Here, on behalf of the Su clan, I am initiating an item exchange. If you want to participate, please stay. If you don't want to participate, you can go to the reception room to taste the spiritual fruit. No one was unwilling to participate in this kind of activity. Just as the cultivator from the Su clan said, none of those who could come here had a low status. It was rare to come across this kind of trading activity. Only a fool would be willing to leave now that they had encountered it. Even if it wasn't for trading, it was good to broaden his horizons. Even Ning Cheng dispelled the idea of leaving. That Su clan's heaven-seated cultivator seemed to know that no one had left, so he took out a jade box and spoke, then I'll throw out a brick to attract jade. This is a ascending dragon orchid. I don't need to talk about the uses of the ascending dragon orchid. Everyone already knows that I want to exchange it for perpetual moon pills or permanent essence pills. Ning Cheng knew about the ascending dragon orchid. It was a top-grade starry sky spiritual grass for body forging. A mature ascending dragon orchid was a starry sky grade 8 spiritual grass. To be honest, Ning Cheng also wanted such a starry sky. He understood that this Su clan's cultivator was truly throwing a brick to attract jade, otherwise, he would not have taken out such a good thing, just to exchange it for perpetual moon pills for cultivation. In this case, as an outsider cultivator, he had to keep a low profile. Apparently, Ning Cheng was not the only body-forging cultivator. The ascending dragon orchid immediately attracted the attention of several cultivators, including 2 heaven-seated cultivators. In the end, it ended up in the hands of a heaven-seated cultivator for 400,000 perpetual moon pills. Although the ascending dragon orchid ended up being exchanged, the atmosphere at the scene had already heated up. Many cultivators took out a variety of things to trade. Unlike the other trade fairs Ning Cheng had seen before, most of the things traded here were relatively rare items. Medicinal pills and weapons, on the other hand, were relatively rare. Moreover, the two sides rarely asked for perpetual moon pills, most of them bartered for other items. Ning Cheng did not make a move. It was not that he did not want these things, but the items he had on him were either very precious or ordinary. After a Heaven's Mandate cultivator finished trading an artifact crafting material, a heaven-seated cultivator sitting at the head of the hall stood up. He raised a jade strip and spoke, "I have a jade strip here. This jade strip contains a void positional map, which points in the direction of a spatial collapse maelstrom. I don't know what's inside, but I do know that a lot of pure celestial essence would pour out of this collapsing maelstrom every 49 days. It's just that this celestial essence chi dissipates too quickly, which is not conducive to cultivation." The heaven-seated cultivator had not finished speaking when Ning Qing guessed what was going on. This cultivator must have accidentally found this place and thought that the spatial collapse maelstrom contained a perpetual moon pill pond. That's why he chose to stay near this spatial collapse maelstrom for a long time. Judging from the way he took out the positional jade strip, even if he stayed here for a long time, he would not be able to enter this spatial collapse maelstrom to find the pill pond. He had no choice but to take it out for a trade. If Ning Qing could guess it, then the other cultivators could also guess it. Everyone stared at the jade strip, but everyone knew that even if they obtained the jade strip, they would not be able to obtain the pill mountain or the pill pond inside the spatial vortex. "I can trade this jade strip for anything. As long as there is something that moves me, I can take it out." The heaven-seated cultivator with the jade strip spoke in a very ordinary manner. As for what could move him, no one else knew about it. "I'll give you 300,000 perpetual moon pills for this jade strip." Immediately, a cultivator stood up and spoke. It stood to reason that 300,000 perpetual moon pills was not a small amount. However, the heaven-seated cultivator still shook his head. Everyone thought to themselves that although this person spoke nicely, he did not want to trade casually. Then someone brought out a variety of starry sky spiritual grasses, weapons and other things, but none of them satisfied the heaven-seated cultivator. Ning Qing wanted to wait a little longer, but when he saw the accompanying cultivator from the Su clan leave, he immediately took out a jade box and threw it to the heaven-seated cultivator. "You don't have to open this jade box. Infiltrate it with your spiritual consciousness and see if this thing can be traded with you. If you can, then give me the jade strip. If you can't, then forget it. However, as long as you agree to trade with me, you will have to swear on the thunder tribulation that you will not go to this place for 10 years. At the same time, you will also not tell a third person the location of this place in any form." The restrictions arranged by Ning Qing were a bit special. Only by holding it in his hand and infiltrating it with his spiritual consciousness could one feel the aura of the things inside. The heaven-seated cultivator glanced at Ning Qing with some disdain in his eyes. Ning Qing looked like a disorderly celestial wheel, which meant that he was at most a heaven's mandate cultivator. A heaven's mandate cultivator dared to make him swear on the thunder tribulation. Truly courageous. However, when his spiritual consciousness infiltrated the jade box, his hand trembled and he almost dropped the jade box on the ground. Immediately, he put away the jade box as fast as he could and threw the jade strip to Ning Qing. "Okay, I'll trade. I, Yang Jun, swear that after trading this jade strip, I will not intentionally go to the place marked on the jade strip for 10 years. At the same time, I will also no longer tell a third person the location of this place in any form. If I violate this oath, may the thunder tribulation turn me to ashes." He had never intended to go to this place. As such, there was no difference between swearing and not swearing. Even so, he had said that he intentionally went to this place. If he accidentally went to this place, then the oath would not count. Ning Qing heard the other party's words, but he didn't care about it. What he wanted was the latter sentence, that this cultivator named Yang Jun would no longer sell the jade strip to others. The rest of the cultivators felt surprised. What exactly did Ning Qing take out? Not only did he force this heaven-seated powerhouse to trade immediately, but he also swore an oath. Under the amazed gazes of the surrounding people, Ning Qing calmly put away the jade strip. He then took out a small time stone. Since this cultivator was a heaven-seated powerhouse, he definitely knew the value of a time stone. Sure enough, he had not guessed wrong. This heaven-seated cultivator could not resist the temptation of a time stone. This was a treasure containing the laws of time. After Ning Cheng put away the jade strip, all the gazes focused on Ning Cheng. No one dared to ask what the heaven-seated cultivator had received from Ning Cheng. However, everyone wanted to know what kind of treasure made this heaven-seated cultivator so moved that he immediately swore to trade. Some of the cultivators who knew about Ning Cheng's background had their eyes lit up. Previously, Ning Cheng had casually given away the tail feather of a starry sky grade 9 demonic beast, Flame Wind Crow. Now, he casually took out something else in exchange for this jade strip. From this, they felt sure that this cultivator had even more good things on him. Ning Cheng acted as if nothing had happened, however, he had already decided to leave. According to his original idea, he wanted to open an alchemy or artifact crafting shop in the Eternal Night domain and then slowly accumulate perpetual moon pills for cultivation. However, he also knew that he had no choice but to do so. With his terrifying consumption of cultivation resources, alchemy or artifact crafting would not satisfy him. Moreover, alchemy and artifact crafting would waste a lot of time and affect his cultivation. After learning that there were many perpetual moon pill mountains in the void outside the Eternal Night domain, he had the idea of going out to look for them. However, this jade strip only strengthened his idea. His situation was different from others. Only with a windfall could he quickly advance to the heaven-seated realm. Ning Cheng had not yet stood up when Su Yuqinghong entered the hall again. Su Baijiao and Duan Gantai still followed behind him, just like two tails. He smiled and greeted everyone before speaking to Ning Cheng in a genial tone. "Dao friend Ning Cheng, you just traded a jade strip from Dao friend Yang Jun. I would like to ask you to exchange it with me. Whether it is perpetual moon pills or permanent essence pills, or anything else, you can just speak your mind." Ning Cheng felt that this was not good. If he did not have the mysterious yellow bead, he would have agreed 100% to Su Yuqinghong's condition. Permanent essence pills were the best resource for cultivation. However, he had the mysterious yellow bead. Moreover, he subconsciously felt that this spatial collapse maelstrom that Yang Jun spoke about contained something good. Some of the cultivators also looked at Yang Jun. They wondered if Yang Jun would regret it if he learned that the Su clan was willing to pay such a price for the jade strip. Chapter 658. Yang Jun's expression remained calm. He naturally would not regret it. After cultivating to his level, perpetual moon pills and permanent essence pills were certainly good things, but could they compare to time stones? Ning Cheng respectfully stood up and cupped his fists before speaking. "This junior has just arrived in the Eternal Night domain and has not seen the void collapse maelstrom yet. Therefore, I want to take a look. I hope senior can understand." When the cultivators in the hall heard Ning Cheng's words, they all shook their heads in disdain. If they had not seen a void collapse, who would they be deceived by? How could any cultivator who came to the Eternal Night domain not have seen a void collapse? Su Yuqinghong still had a smile on his face, as if he really believed Ning Cheng's words. Instead, he nodded and said, "In that case, I won't take away your treasures. Dao friend Ning Cheng, please take a seat." Ning Cheng did not sit down and spoke up in a polite tone. "This junior has disturbed you for a long time. It's time for me to leave. Many thanks for senior's hospitality." Su Yuqinghong nodded and said to the maidservant on the side, "Quickly lead the way for the guests." Ning Cheng left the Su clan with a smile and joy. When he walked out of the Su clan's gate, he even rewarded the maidservant with a low-grade defensive Dao artifact to show that he felt very satisfied with the Su clan's wedding. However, after Ning Cheng left the Su clan, the smile on his face immediately disappeared. Su Yuqinghong was definitely a person who hid a dagger behind his smile. Don't look at this person's friendly demeanor. Ning Cheng felt sure that as soon as he left the Eternal Night domain, he would immediately be targeted. With the status of the Su clan in the Eternal Night domain, it would be strange if he could go to the place where the jade strip was stored after taking it. However, he did not worry about it. With his current cultivation, as long as he left the Eternal Night Domain and controlled the Starry Sky will to escape, it would be strange if the Su clan could catch up to him. Nevertheless, Ning Qing did not rush to leave the Eternal Night City. He believed that with the status of the Su clan in the Eternal Night Domain, they would not go as far as to attack him in the Eternal Night City. Even if they wanted to snatch his things, they would at least have to wait until he left the Eternal Night Domain, or until the Su clan felt confident that he could not leave the Eternal Night Domain. Ning Qing was not in a hurry to leave the Eternal Night Domain. His only purpose was to see Su Baijiao. Su Baijiao said that she knew what he wanted. The only explanation was that she could see his desire for the purple of the purple Yin. Although Ning Qing believed that the purple Yin spring water would not have much effect on Qionghua's injuries, but if it was available, Ning Qing would not mind getting some. Whether it was effective or not, he would only know after trying it out. Ning Qing had initially thought that the Perpetual Sand Rest Stop was not a small place in the Eternal Night City, but after asking around, he found out that it was just a small and unremarkable rest stop. If Su Baijiao hadn't specifically mentioned this name, it would have been very difficult for him to find such an inn in the city of Evernight and rest there. Su Baijiao asked him to meet at the Perpetual Sand Rest Stop tomorrow night. However, after Ning Qing found the Perpetual Sand Rest Stop, he did not go in. Regardless of whether this rest stop had anything to do with the Su clan or not, since he had already made an appointment for tomorrow night, then he would have to come back tomorrow night. Ning Qing went to another rest stop in the Eternal Night Domain, called the Eternal Immortal Rest Stop. Although he did not have many Starry Sky Essence crystals on him, it was more than enough to stay in an ordinary resting pen for a night. Ning Qing did not pay for one night's room, he directly paid for 5 nights. Even if he felt sure that he wouldn't stay here for more than 2 nights, he didn't care about these Starry Sky crystals. With the status of the Su clan in the Eternal Night Domain, his every move at this time would definitely be monitored. Instead of that, he might as well pay more for the room and use it to confuse them. He really did not have any immortal crystals or perpetual moon pills on him. Otherwise, he would have to pay at least a month's worth of room fees. If not for that jade strip, Ning Qing might have already wandered around the Eternal Night City to see if there was a good place for him to set up an artifact crafting stall. Now that he couldn't go anywhere, he could only wait until tomorrow night to meet Su Baijiao. Therefore, as soon as he entered the room, Ning Qing began to arrange various defensive arrays. Defense, shielding, warning. At this time, Ning Qing fully realized how important it was to be proficient in array formations. In order not to shock others, Ning Qing did not arrange high-level array formations. Most of them were Grade 3 Celestial Arrays or Grade 4 Celestial River Arrays. Once he arranged a Grade 6 Celestial River Defensive Array, it would definitely alarm a large number of people in the Eternal Night Domain. After arranging the array formations, Ning Qing took out the jade strip Yang Jun had given him and carefully looked at it. From the jade strip Yang Jun gave him, he could see that this spatial collapse maelstrom was very far away from the Eternal Night Domain. For Ning Qing, the further this place was from the Eternal Night Domain, the better. However, he feared that others could easily find it if it was too close. The jade strip's directions were very clear, which made Ning Qing wonder if Yang Jun had engraved this jade strip himself. Maybe Yang Jun had obtained this jade strip from someone else, but he couldn't find a way to get in, so he took it out for a transaction. After putting away the jade strip, Ning Qing closed his eyes to rest. Without perpetual moon pills for cultivation, he didn't want to cultivate in this place. The only thing he could do now was to continue deducing array formations. Most of the day passed by quickly. Just as Ning Qing immersed himself in deducing array formations, his defensive array formation suddenly moved slightly, and a shadow suddenly emerged from his defensive array formation. Ning Qing suddenly sobered up and immediately stood up. At the same time, a Dao artifact long spear appeared in his hands, while the twin wings of the heavenly clouds readied itself. Although his array formation was not of a high level, it was something he had personally arranged. Except for powerhouses like Zhongli Baiqi, only a few people could unwittingly enter his defensive array formation without triggering it. "Who is your excellency?" Ning Qing stared at the cultivator who entered his defensive array and asked in a cold voice. Although he didn't look nervous, he felt even more shocked in his heart. He could feel that the cultivator who entered his defensive array didn't have a higher cultivation than him. It definitely wasn't a cultivator in the heaven-seated realm. A cultivator with no higher cultivation than him could enter his defensive array without making a sound. It was just too terrifying. There were only two reasons for this. One was that the other party was much stronger than him, and the second was that the other party's attainments in array formations were much higher than his. "You know me. Your array formations aren't bad." With a familiar voice, the cultivator removed the mask on his face. "It's you." Ning Qing felt surprised. He didn't expect Duan Gantai to come looking for him. In his mind, Duan Gantai should be holding Su Baijiao in the bridal chamber at this time. How could he find him here? This fellow's jealousy couldn't be so disgusting, right? He even squeezed out of the bridal chamber to teach him a lesson, an object of jealousy for no reason. Duan Gantai didn't show any of the killing intent and jealousy Ning Qing had seen before. Instead, he looked at Ning Qing calmly and said, "Are you thinking that I should be sleeping with Su Baijiao in my arms? Why would I have the time to come here and find trouble with you?" Ning Qing acquiesced. He was a little surprised by Duan Gantai's accurate judgment. Was this fellow really the same person he saw fighting over a woman? "I have my own skills, so no one knows that I came here. My other self is lying on Su Baijiao's bed. Of course, Su Baijiao wouldn't sleep with someone like me in her arms. At least I have some self-awareness." After Duan Gantai finished, he didn't wait for Ning Cheng's invitation and took the initiative to sit down. Ning Cheng also sat down and poured a cup of spiritual tea for Duan Gantai before saying, "Tell me why you came here." "I have no interest in you and Su Baijiao." Duan Gantai showed a slight smile. "I know that you have no interest in Su Baijiao. Su Baijiao shouldn't be worthy of you. I believe I didn't misread you. I came here today to ask you for a favor. Of course, I won't treat you badly." Ning Qing fully understood at this moment that this Duan Gantai was an extremely intelligent fellow. This kind of person would never put his jealousy and dissatisfaction in front of him. From this, Ning Qing understood that the Duan Gantai he saw in the Su clan was not his real style. Thinking back to Duan Gantai's performance in the middle of the wooden hall, even after Su Baijiao pinched his finger, Duan Gantai still remained calm. This was to show his magnanimity in front of the Su clan and to suppress the jealousy and anger in his heart. However, after Su Baijiao walked past Ning Qing, he couldn't help but release his murderous intent towards Ning Qing. This showed that although he pretended to be magnanimous, his shrewdness ran deep. Even if he pretended to be magnanimous, he could only pretend for a while. When the people from the Su clan saw this, they naturally wouldn't put a superficial cultivator like Duan Gantai in their eyes. This fellow truly had a good mind. He pretended to be patient in front of the Su clan's elders, and then couldn't help it. This kind of act was more realistic than directly acting out. Ning Qing spoke up in a calm voice, "What do you want me to help you with? I just arrived in the Eternal Night domain and have limited abilities. Whether I can help you or not is another matter. I know that the Su clan wants something from me, and the Su clan also wants something from you. You don't have to refute it. As for what you want, I won't ask. As for what you want from me, I won't say it. Let's work together. Otherwise, you can never escape from the Eternal Night domain." After listening to Duan Gantai's words, Ning Qing sneered, "Brother Duan, whether I can escape from the Eternal Night domain or not, that's my own business. You don't have to worry about it. Besides, I'm going to stay in the Eternal Night domain for a while." Duan Gantai laughed, "Brother Ning, we're the same kind of people. I can guess one or two things about what you're thinking. If you want to cooperate with me, then let's not have any suspicions. Maybe you're relying on an escape talisman or a flight-type weapon to say that no one can do anything to you after leaving the Eternal Night Domain. But I can tell you for sure that you underestimate the Sioux clan. Not to mention whether you can escape with an escape talisman or a flight-type weapon, I'm sure that you can't leave the Eternal Night Domain. Ning Cheng's expressions changed slightly. This was what he was most worried about. He could definitely escape with his Starry Sky Wheel, which meant that he did not fear Duan Gantai's threat. What he feared the most was that he couldn't leave the Eternal Night Domain. Let's work together. I also want to leave the Eternal Night Domain. You saw my means just now. I can easily pass through your array formation. However, my means can only deceive the Sioux clan for a short time. It's not enough to leave the Eternal Night Domain. Therefore, I need your help, and you also need my help. Duan Gantai's tone sounded very sincere. Conditions. Ning Cheng spoke up without any hurry. Since Duan Gantai came to him at this time, it meant that Duan Gantai was in a much more dangerous situation compared to him. He believed that Duan Gantai had some kind of treasure on him. Otherwise, the Sioux clan would not tie Duan Gantai up by marrying Su Baijiao off. Chapter 659. 1 million Perpetual Moon Pills. Duan Gantai spoke up in a straightforward manner. Ning Cheng's face was calm, and one could not see any abnormalities, but in his heart, he had already started to tumble endlessly. 1 million Perpetual Moon Pills, this Duan Gantai actually took it out. This person was just too rich. He always thought that he was rich, but compared to Duan Gantai, he was just a poor man. In the beginning, he had managed to obtain the Bai Chi artifact crafting store from an eternal-level heavenly emperor through the temptation of a good fortune fragment. Moreover, under the pressure of various powerhouses, he managed to obtain 500,000 perpetual moon pills. Duan Gantai was just a trivial heaven's mandate cultivator, yet he could take out 1 million spirit stones without even batting an eyelid. Moreover, since Duan Gantai mentioned perpetual moon pills, it meant that he knew that he urgently needed perpetual moon pills. Only with more perpetual moon pills could he advance to the full circle of heaven's mandate realm and then cross the tribulation to reach the heaven-seated realm. From this, it could be seen that not only was this person wealthy, but he also knew where the opponent's weakness was. I don't want perpetual moon pills, I need permanent essence pills. Ning Cheng secretly took in a deep breath, but his tone remained calm. He absolutely could not show an expression of 1 million perpetual moon pills. Duan Gantai remained silent for a moment. I don't have many permanent essence pills, but I came to you in good faith. If you want to exchange it for permanent essence pills, I can give you 10,000 permanent essence pills. Ning Cheng felt even more shocked. 1 million perpetual moon pills could theoretically be exchanged for 10,000 permanent essence pills. In fact, it was impossible to exchange for it. This Duan Gantai could come up with 10,000 permanent essence pills to cooperate with him, which meant that this cooperation would still be beneficial to him. Apart from the fact that he was in dire straits, his net worth was definitely several times more than that. Ning Cheng spoke up slowly, Brother Duan, 10,000 permanent essence pills might not even be 1/100th of what you offered. You might lack sincerity in this cooperation. Duan Gantai stared at Ning Cheng for a while before speaking up with the same calm voice, Brother Ning, I'm not asking you to cooperate with me. This is a good thing for both of us, and I am showing my sincerity by offering something. Even if I only have these 10,000 permanent essence pills, I will still give them to you. Compared to my life, cultivation resources are nothing. Besides, Duan Gantai's tone turned cold. Moreover, I know that your secret might be even bigger than mine. I might have obtained some cultivation resources, but as for how many good things you have, you should know it yourself, and the people from the Sioux clan should also know it. I'm only willing to take out these things. If you're really unwilling to cooperate with me, then I'll take my leave. I don't believe that I can't find a way out. Ning Cheng suddenly felt a little helpless. Since Duan Gontai only took out these things, he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing that Duan Gontai was about to leave, Ning Cheng had to stop him. Brother Duan, I have a good weapon and a few materials, but these things can't be turned into cultivation resources. That's why I want to take the risk of using Yang Jun's jade strip. How about this, you take out 1,000,000 perpetual moon pills and 10,000 permanent essence pills, and we'll make a deal. Otherwise, I will give Yang Jun's jade strip to the Su clan. Alright, it's settled then. Duan Gontai didn't wait for Ning Cheng to continue and directly took out a ring and threw it to Ning Cheng. It was so decisive that Ning Cheng couldn't believe it. Ning Cheng took the ring and swept it with his spiritual consciousness. Sure enough, it contained 1,000,000 perpetual moon pills and 10,000 permanent essence pills. He felt a little bitter in his heart. It seemed like his appetite was too small. With Duan Gantai's forthrightness, if he wanted more, he could still succeed. Duan Gantai seemed to understand Ning Cheng's thoughts and spoke up calmly. First, I can only take out these things at most. If you want more, I won't trade with you. Second, the Su clan isn't eyeing your jade strip, but the other things on you. Even if you give the jade strip to the Su clan, you can't escape. Third, the things you traded with Yang Jun will soon appear on Su Yukinghong's desk. You don't understand the Su clan. Let me give you a piece of advice. After escaping from the Eternal Night Domain, if you insist on going to the place marked in the jade strip, you will only be courting death. I'm sure that the Su clan's people will be waiting for you in that place. The reason I know this is not because I know more than you, but because I know the Su clan better than you do. Thank you for reminding me. Ning Cheng put away the ring, and his whole person completely calmed down, no longer showing any fluctuations. Duan Gantai's shrewdness and judgment far exceeded his expectations. It wasn't surprising for such a person to have so many good things. Duan Gantai showed an indiscernible smile. No, you owe me a favor. Just remember to pay it back in the future. Ning Cheng also showed a smile. You're wrong. It's still within the scope of our cooperation. I don't owe you a favor. You helped me because you think highly of me and want to help me deal with the Su clan in the future. I don't have any hatred with the Su clan, so it's fine if I leave. But you and the Su clan might not be that simple, right? But if it's really as you said, I don't mind helping you in the future if possible. Duan Gantai nodded. Talking to smart people really saves energy. If you say you don't owe me, then you don't owe me anything. Let's not talk much nonsense. Let's talk about how we can cooperate. Ning Cheng didn't bother to talk much with Duan Gantai. This fellow's scheming and appearance could match up to his outstanding appearance. Duan Gantai was a tactful person and didn't talk nonsense. After hearing Ning Cheng's words, he directly spoke up. When we were toasting before, my wife pinched your finger. That's right. Maybe she had a crush on me and wanted to ask me out. This woman really doesn't follow the etiquette of a married woman. She hasn't even consummated their marriage, yet she already knows how to ask out other men. In the words of my hometown, it's called asking out. Ning Cheng seemed to be standing in Duan Gantai's perspective. Duan Gantai's face once again regained a calm look and interrupted Ning Cheng's words. She said that she wants to meet you at the Perpetual Sand Rest Stop tomorrow night. She said that she has something you need. Ning Cheng felt surprised. This Duan Gantai was too strange. He could even read the information from a spiritual consciousness imprint. Did this fellow have a spiritual consciousness thorn like him? But he didn't notice Duan Gantai's spiritual consciousness breaking through the spiritual consciousness imprint in his hand. However, he still remained calm on the surface. Yes, she did say that she has something I need. Duan Gantai showed a rare smile. If I'm not wrong, with your performance in the Su clan, the thing you need should be the purple spring water, right? Ning Cheng felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. His performance was indeed too obvious. He could only admit it. Yes, I need the purple spring water. Duan Gantai's face returned to seriousness. I don't know what you need the purple spring water for, but I can tell you that the reputation of the purple spring water far outweighs its effects. Only the purple spirit spring bead or the real purple spirit spring water is a good thing. The purple spring water soaked in the purple spirit spring water is of little value. Ning Qing didn't speak. He completely agreed with Duan Gantai's judgment in his heart. He originally thought the same way, and this Duan Gantai had the same thoughts as him. Seeing Ning Qing remain silent, Duan Gantai continued, moreover, Su Baijiao doesn't have much purple spring water in her hands. She called you over to tie you up with the purple spring water. The reason I gave you 1,000,000 perpetual moon pills and permanent essence pills is to ask you to give up this unrealistic and useless bait. Tell me what you think. Ning Qing spoke up in a noncommittal tone. Duan Gantai spoke up with a solemn tone. I know where the two powerhouses who snatched the purple spirit spring bead went, and I can also provide you with a place called the Temple of Falling Stars. It's a complimentary gift. What I'm asking you to do now is to go to the appointment tomorrow night, and then I'll catch you in the act. With my violent temper, I'll definitely start a fight with you on the spot. Just say that you can't fight in the Eternal Night domain. If you have the guts, then go to the Eternal Night dueling tower. I know about the Eternal Night dueling tower. Ning Qing nodded. The jade strip that Su Baijiao gave him contained an introduction to the Eternal Night dueling tower. This place was located on the public square outside the Eternal Night domain. As long as one entered the Eternal Night dueling tower, one had to die and comprehend something before they could come out. One could even say that this was one of the cruelest challenge platforms that Ning Qing had ever encountered. Although the other challenge platforms also had such a saying, it was not certain. However, in the Eternal Night dueling tower, one had to die. Yes, it's the Eternal Night dueling tower. The Eternal Night dueling tower is located on the Eternal Night public square outside the Eternal Night domain. Naturally, we can't really enter the Eternal Night dueling tower. Only by going to the Eternal Night public square would we have a chance to escape. Even if the Su clan is even more blatant, they would not dare to stop us from fighting for a woman on the street. Therefore, it will definitely succeed. Duan Gantai seemed to be afraid that Ning Qing might not understand it and spoke in a very careful manner. Ning Qing did not know much about the Su clan. He frowned slightly. You mean, if we don't leave the Eternal Night domain, even if we escape now, we won't be able to escape? You will definitely not be able to escape. You will know why in the future, but I don't have time to explain it to you right now. With your attainments in array formations, you still don't know what an aura-locking grand array is. Duan Gantai spoke in a very affirmative tone. Ning Qing felt shocked in his heart. Duan Gantai did not know about his attainments in array formations. Therefore, when he spoke those words, he fully understood why Duan Gantai felt so afraid. He was now an Imperial Array Master who could barely arrange Celestial River Grade 6 array formations. Moreover, he had also come into contact with an aura-locking Grand Array. This Grand Array, as long as it collected a cultivator's aura and integrated it into the Grand Array, could lock the cultivator within the Grand Array. Once the cultivator tried to escape from the Grand Array would suddenly activate and block the cultivator's aura. Fortunately, he did not abruptly leave the Eternal Night domain. Otherwise, he might have already ended up in the Su clan's prison. The ignorant were fearless. Ning Qing felt a chill in his heart. If he had known that the aura-locking Grand Array had trapped him, he would have also asked Duan Gantai for cooperation. Fortunately, Duan Gantai thought that his attainments in array formations were too low and lacked knowledge. Therefore, he simply came to him for cooperation. It seems that it was not wrong to keep a low profile. Without waiting for Ning Qing to ask, Duan Gantai took the initiative to explain. The Su clan, on seeing us making such a big scene and wanting to go to the dueling platform, would definitely take the initiative to release the Eternal Night Domain's aura-locking Grand Array and let us temporarily go to the dueling tower in the Eternal Night Grand Public Square. This is our only chance. What if the Su clan refuses? Ning Qing knew that Duan Gantai's plan was the best, but after knowing the danger, he also started to think about it. Chapter 660. Duan Gantai took a deep breath. Based on my understanding of the Su clan would definitely let us go to the Eternal Night Public Square. As one of the largest clans in the Eternal Night Domain, as long as we don't really want to escape, the Su clan wouldn't be so shameless as to lock us up in public. If the Su clan really did this, it would be akin to lice on a bald man's head. It would make it clear that they want to steal our things, which would definitely cause others to covet us. Of course, if the Su clan really is so shameless and brainless, then we can only resign ourselves to our fate. Ning Qing clenched his fists. He could feel that Duan Gantai's words did not mean despair. In other words, if the Su clan refused, Duan Gantai might have a way to leave. However, this method might hurt Duan Gantai's vitality. As for Ning Qing, he really had no way to leave. He had to resign himself to fate. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, he couldn't avoid it. As Ning Qing thought of this, he decided to let it go. If he really couldn't leave, then he would think about it again. Moreover, he believed that Duan Gantai's plan had a 90% chance of success. While escaping, even if there was a 10% chance of success, 90% chance of success was already very high. Brother Duan, I fully understand. I will definitely act according to the plan tomorrow night. Also, Brother Duan, please give me the Temple of Fallen Stars positional jade strip. Maybe I can use it in the future. Ning Qing let go of his thoughts and immediately made plans for the future. Duan Gantai showed a faint smile and put down the jade strip he had already prepared. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared from Ning Qing's room. Ning Qing's defensive array formation was like a curtain to him, and he didn't even need to lift a finger to open it. This time, Ning Qing's spiritual consciousness had already noticed the changes in the other party's movement technique and his array formation. He saw Duan Gantai's body flash as he walked forward, and then he easily passed through his array formation. Ning Qing remained silent. He had never seen such an array-breaking method before. The light flashing over Duan Gantai's body most likely belonged to a heaven-defying weapon. This weapon could ignore ordinary array formations. If this person became his enemy in the future, he would definitely become a powerful opponent. In any case, Ning Qing felt that Duan Gantai had no reason to lie to him. He picked up the jade strip given to him by Duan Gantai and casually scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. Inside it was the location of the vast and boundless starry sky. The Temple of Fallen Stars was located in a remote location within the starry sky. Putting away the jade strip, Ning Qing did not intend to go to the Temple of Fallen Stars in the near future. With his current cultivation, discussing the purpleine spirit spring bead with such an expert was simply courting death. However, this Duan Gantai really had a lot of secrets. He even knew about this. Ning Qing had already left the rest stop and arrived at the Eternal Sand rest stop. He did not even use his spiritual consciousness to sweep out for the cultivators following him. The Perpetual Sand rest stop was not only inconspicuous, but there were also not many people. The hall on the ground floor was not very spacious, and there were even fewer people. Including Ning Qing, there were only 3 guests. Ning Qing did not look for a booth, rather he went to the corner of the ground floor and asked for a pot of spiritual wine before sitting down. He wasn't thinking about Su Baijiao but Duan Gantai. Strictly speaking, his cooperation with Duan Gantai was mutually beneficial. But in the cooperation, he had gained all the advantages. Through this cooperation, one could only say that Duan Gantai was a very good person and was quite magnanimous. Ning Qing picked up the jug of wine and brought it to his mouth. This was his subconscious action, but when the jug of wine was close to his mouth, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Even if he didn't understand the aura-locking grand array, as long as he explained it in detail, even if it took some time, he could explain it clearly. As long as he understood the power of the aura-locking grand array, he wouldn't need to take out these perpetual moon pills and permanent essence pills. Maybe he would even ask for something from him. With Duan Gantai's shrewdness, wouldn't he have the patience to explain it? Moreover, he even said that it would take too much time to explain it. He and Duan Gantai didn't know each other, so why did he let him take all the benefits? As long as he cooperated with him, he could just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. No, Ning Qing even subconsciously wanted to stand up. There must be something wrong here. Duan Gantai was definitely not the kind of person who would give benefits to others for no reason. For someone like him, even if he knew that the Su clan wanted to use him, he would still feel a little uncomfortable seeing Su Baijiao flirting with him, let alone help him. Although this kind of help was for Duan Gantai, Ning Qing still felt that something was wrong. However, after thinking about it, Ning Qing couldn't figure out what Duan Gantai was hiding. In any case, as long as he and Duan Gantai quarreled, they could go to the Eternal Night Grand Public Square. Once they reached the Eternal Night Grand Public Square, he and Duan Gantai would go their separate ways and would have nothing to do with each other. Even if Duan Gantai had any means, he wouldn't be able to harm him. As for the Temple of Falling Stars, he had no plans to go there in the short term. After leaving the Eternal Night Grand Public Square, with his speed, he wouldn't fear Duan Gantai. Even if the Su clan wanted to chase after him, they wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Did he really think that Duan Gantai, a gentleman, was a mean person? Just as Ning Qing frowned, a sweet voice arrived. "Brother Ning, sorry to keep you waiting. Senior apprentice Sister Su is here. I just arrived." Ning Qing quickly stood up and smiled. Su Baijiao's eyes flashed with some hidden bitterness that others couldn't detect at all. She then spoke to Ning Qing in a soft voice, "Let's go to the private room. I booked a private room here." Others couldn't detect this hidden bitterness, but Ning Qing saw it. Ning Qing's eyes also showed some joy and a little uneasiness after seeing Su Baijiao's hidden bitterness. "I'll listen to Senior Apprentice Sister Su's instructions." Su Baijiao nodded and went upstairs first. At the same time, she used a softer voice to reach Ning Qing's ears. "Big brother Ning, you can just call me Baijiao from now on." Ning Qing and Duan Gantai had already discussed and decided to leave the Eternal Night Domain with Su Baijiao's help. In Ning Qing's opinion, it would be best for him to blow up this matter as much as possible. That way, Duan Gantai's reason would be even stronger. "That's good, little sister Baijiao," Ning Qing called out. Su Baijiao's face turned slightly red and quickened her pace. Soon, she walked into a private room on the second floor. She waited for Ning Qing to come in before quickly activating the restrictions on the private room. Ning Qing looked around the private room and found that there was even a bed inside. He sneered in his heart. She really came to seduce people on their wedding night. "Baijiao." Ning Qing hesitated. It seemed that he couldn't speak the next words. Su Baijiao took out some array flags and activated a few more restrictions on the private room before speaking. "Big brother Ning, I shouldn't have come to see you today. The first time I saw you, I knew that you weren't an ordinary person. You haven't even reached the heaven-seated realm, yet you could come to the Eternal Night Domain. This time, you came to my wedding and even gave me such a precious gift. I really appreciate it. After guessing that you needed the Purple Een spring water, I just wanted to tell you everything I know as soon as possible. I hope that you won't look down on me because of this. Little sister Baijiao." Ning Qing's eyes flashed with gratitude. He took a step forward and grabbed Su Baijiao's hands. Su Baijiao's face turned red again and quickly struggled. However, Ning Qing's grip was tight, and she couldn't break free. Su Baijiao's palms instantly turned moist in Ning Qing's hands. Her voice also trembled, my Su clan still has half a bottle of purple Een spring water. Big brother Ning, let go of me, Baijiao, although the purple Een spring water is important, I am even more grateful to you. On this important day, you deliberately came out to tell me such a trivial thing. Thank you. Ning Cheng's eyes flashed with heat while he sneered in his heart. Sure enough, he didn't bring it with him. In the end, he still had to go to the Su clan to get it. If this half bottle of purple Een spring water could really cure Qianghua, he would do everything in his power to get it. However, Ning Cheng felt sure that this half bottle of purple Een spring water would not have much effect on Qianghua. Moreover, he was sure that even if he went to the Su clan, he wouldn't be able to get it. At best, it would only send him to the Su clan to cook. Don't do this, let go of me. Su Baijiao's face blushed like it was covered in rouge. However, Ning Cheng still did not let go. Bang! The door to the booth suddenly burst open. Duan Gantai, who was extremely angry, stood at the door and pointed his finger at Ning Cheng and Su Baijiao while trembling. His eyes were so red that they looked as if they were about to bleed. At the same time, waves of murderous intent erupted from his body. Behind Duan Gantai, there were several waiters from the rest stop, who also saw the ambiguous appearance of Ning Cheng and Su Baijiao. Su Baijiao quickly took her hand away from Ning Cheng's hand, and her face turned a little pale. Whether it was true or not, Duan Gantai was still her nominal husband. Yet, on the second day of their wedding, she had already fooled around with another male cultivator. If this matter spread out, it would definitely cause her to lose all her face. Ah! Duan Gantai suddenly brought out a long knife from his back and smashed the rest stop into pieces. Surnamed Ning, this one already knew that you were not a good person. Yet, on the second day of this Duan's wedding, you actually seduced my woman. Die for me. Duan Gantai's forehead bulged with blue veins, and his murderous aura surged. It seemed that he would not stop until he swallowed Ning Cheng. Duan Gantai's voice was hoarse and loud, and in just a moment, everyone around knew about it. Soon, the matter spread like wildfire, and a large group of cultivators swarmed over to watch the fun. Su Baijiao of the Su clan had just gotten married and had even invited many celebrities and powerhouses from the Eternal Night domain. Yet, in just one day, Su Baijiao had a private meeting with another man in the rest stop, and was caught red-handed by her son-in-law. Not to mention that this female cultivator was a vinegar jar, even if she wasn't, no one would be able to endure such a thing. Gantai, don't be like this. You misunderstood. Let's go back and talk about it. Su Baijiao spoke up anxiously. She truly felt anxious. After Duan Gantai's death, it didn't matter to her. But now, she and Duan Gantai had just gotten married, and yet such a thing happened. It truly made her lose all her face. At this moment, she could only blame herself for being too impatient about this matter. If she had known earlier, she would have discussed it with her family and then slowly come up with a plan. Ning Cheng truly admired Duan Gantai. Not only did he find this place without anyone knowing, but he also accurately grasped the opportunity to open the door. This was a very good partner, but also a very strong opponent. Chapter 661. Ning Cheng and Duan Gantai both rushed towards the Eternal Night public square in anger. When the two rushed out of the Eternal Night domain, no one stopped them. The two felt happy at the same time. At least the first step of their plan had succeeded. If Duan Gantai really did as he guessed, then he would truly be finished. Although Duan Gantai couldn't kill him with a sneak attack, he could still delay Ning Cheng's escape. As long as he delayed Ning Cheng for 1 or 2 breaths, the people from the Su clan would be able to stop him. The two of them walked all the way to the Eternal Night dueling tower on the Eternal Night public square, followed by a large number of cultivators who were there to watch the show. Swish! Ning Cheng's shadow flashed at the edge of the public square array formation, before disappearing without a trace. Thinking until here, the originally vague idea suddenly became clear in Ning Cheng's mind. What would happen if Duan Gantai escaped to the Evernight Grand Square at the same time as him, and Duan Gantai suddenly attacked him? Su Baijiao, at this moment, became an outsider. She wanted to rush up and grab Duan Gantai or stop Ning Cheng, but she didn't have the courage to do so. The people on the street were already laughing at her. If she still stood up for them, she would have no place to hide her face. If the two of them went all out, and he didn't use Sunset's twilight, whether or not he could kill Duan Gantai was an entirely different matter. Even if he were an idiot, Duan Gantai understood that Ning Cheng had deliberately suppressed him to the point of vomiting blood to make him relax his vigilance. What a cunning fellow! After losing 1,000,000 perpetual moon pills and 10,000 permanent essence pills, he still chose to escape using this secret technique. If he had known earlier, he would have just used a forbidden technique to escape and let that Ning bastard take advantage of him. Duan Gantai cursed at Ning Cheng while making dozens of hand gestures. In just a breath's time, his entire body turned into a ball of blood light. This ball of blood light flashed on the spot and then disappeared without a trace. The moment he arrived in front of the dueling tower, Ning Cheng brought out his long spear. At the same time, Traceless stabbed towards Duan Gantai. At the same time, the twin wings of the heavenly clouds crazily activated. He wanted to teleport out of this place first. He didn't want Duan Gantai's corpse, and he also knew that he couldn't kill Duan Gantai in a single move. Hence, when he used this traceless move, he didn't even need his spear anymore. Su Yukinghong nodded, took out a jade card and carved a few array patterns on it. Unfortunately, Ning Cheng didn't know that the Eternal Night Public Square's array formation would automatically lock onto a person if he knew about it. If he knew about it, he would have understood Duan Gantai's thoughts. Ning Cheng took action against Duan Gantai because he feared that Gantai would attack. In any case, he believed that even if Duan Gantai didn't use this array formation to escape, even if he blocked his path, he would still have other means to escape. This was the only thought in Ning Cheng's mind at this moment. Bang! The moment Ning Cheng escaped, an invisible force knocked Duan Gantai back and forced him to land on the public square again. A few incomparably powerful killing auras came pressing down from afar. Ning Yen Ching Ching force and a few from far. From a Dong killing intent. From the distance. From Ching Kuden Gon Tian's Tian. Cheng. Cheng time, do, he came. Cheng. Cheng Cheng. Chen Ching Tian, time, the Ching Shan, the star Jiang Cheng the Ching time Tian public Cheng, the star sky square Dong and star time. The next moment, the star sky will turned into nothingness and disappeared without a trace. By this time, Ning Cheng had already reached the edge of the Eternal Night Public Square's grand array. His spiritual consciousness swept through the scene and cursed in his heart. This Duan Gantai truly didn't have any good intentions. However, he also felt relieved. Fortunately, he had started ahead of time. Otherwise, he would have had to resolve Duan Gantai's move. If that happened, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the Eternal Night Public Square. Ha! Duan Gantai laughed in anger. His face showed only shame and anger, not even half a smile. Surnamed Ning, do you think you can rely on your pretty face? Your grandpa wants to go to the duel tower to kill you. I, Duan Gantai, want to see who has no guts and who only knows how to curry favor with women. If Ning Cheng had attacked from behind, Duan Gantai wouldn't have been able to block Ning Cheng's spear. Obviously, Duan Gantai and Ning Cheng had the same thoughts, and the two attacked almost at the same time. Ning Cheng subconsciously shuddered. If that was the case, then this fellow's previous words were all to make him relax his vigilance. In order to make him relax his vigilance, this fellow not only bargained with him, but even mentioned the Temple of Falling Stars. He had calculated everything, but he never expected that Ning Cheng would not show any gratitude and instead attack him at the same time as him. He wasn't afraid of fighting, but what shocked him the most was that Ning Cheng's cultivation wasn't any lower than his. Therefore, when the two of them fought, he didn't gain any advantage at all. Ning Cheng, shocked by the violent murderous aura, quickly retreated and landed on the street. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't know what Duan Gantai was plotting, but seeing Duan Gantai's murderous aura, he vaguely grasped something. Moreover, Su Yukinghong believed that although Duan Gantai was powerful, he couldn't rush out of the Eternal Night Public Square's array formation in just 2 breaths. Even if he suddenly started, it would take him nearly 2 breaths to cross the distance to the Eternal Night Public Square. As for Ning Cheng, it was even more impossible. Since his debut, Duan Gantai had never suffered such grievances and depression. This cultivator named Ning Cheng, he would remember it. One day in the future, he would make sure to get back at him with interest. This time, he suffered a loss because of his carelessness. Before, every time he attacked, he would always calculate the opponent's strength. But this time, he actually neglected it. This was a mistake he would never make again in the future. Duan Gantai's murderous aura instantly suppressed him, although it couldn't make him vomit blood. But Ning Cheng could feel that if an ordinary Heaven's Mandate cultivator encountered this kind of murderous aura, it wouldn't be impossible for him to vomit blood. He simply forced out a mouthful of blood to prevent Duan Gantai from knowing his strength. At this time, the 2 experts from the Su clan had just arrived at the place where Ning Cheng disappeared. The 2 looked at the starry sky while disappearing from their spiritual consciousness in horror and didn't know what to do. Chase after him? That would be a huge joke. He understood the meaning of the clan head's words. The Eternal Night Public Square's array formation was usually in a locked state, and ordinary people entering and leaving would not be affected at all. If someone moved too fast and passed through the public square's array formation within 2 breaths, the array formation would immediately lock down. Even if they tried to escape, only one person could escape. The other person would also end up locked in the Eternal Night Public Square. As for the one person who escaped, the Su clan could easily catch him. Regardless of whether his guess was true or not, he could not let Duan Gantai take the lead. It was a matter of life and death. Although they couldn't catch up to Ning Cheng, they at least saw how Ning Cheng disappeared. As for Duan Gantai, they didn't even know how he disappeared, let alone chase after him. Duan Gantai, on seeing Ning Cheng spit out a mouthful of blood due to his murderous aura, felt a little relieved. He wasn't surprised that Ning Cheng vomited blood because he knew his own strength. With his formidable strength, it was normal for him to vomit blood under such a sudden murderous aura. With Duan Gantai and Ning Cheng causing such a ruckus and even cursing each other on the street, it was impossible for the Su clan to not know about it. Taking himself as an example, with his current cultivation, if he suddenly attacked an ordinary Heaven's Mandate cultivator with a killing move, that ordinary Heaven's Mandate cultivator would definitely die. He could even take away the corpse of that ordinary Heaven's Mandate cultivator. Duan Gantai ignored Su Baijiao's cries and rushed towards Ning Cheng. A powerful murderous aura swept out, forcing the surrounding onlookers to retreat. Boom boom boom. Traceless speed wasn't slow at all. The moment Ning Cheng brought it out, it tore through space. But even so, it still collided with Duan Gantai's broadsword, causing a violent explosion. Eternal Night City's Su clan, Su Yukinghong, received the news almost a dozen breaths after Ning Cheng and Duan Gantai started fighting. The white-haired man pondered for a moment before speaking up. Our Su clan isn't the only one who can use the Eternal Night Domain's aura-locking grand array. Besides, to keep 2 Heaven's Mandate cultivators, there's no need to make such a big fuss. Let them go first. Even if they have any tricks up their sleeves, they won't be able to walk out of the Eternal Night Public Square. At this time, Su Yukinghong was sitting with a white-haired middle-aged man. When he received the news, he immediately asked, "Uncle Cheng, the 2 of them want to leave the Eternal Night Domain and go to the Eternal Night Public Square's dueling tower. Should we let them out of the Eternal Night Domain?" Ning Qing spat out a mouthful of blood and felt as if he had lost all his face. He angrily shouted, Duan Gantai, don't think that you're so great just because you married into the Su clan. What's the use of sneak attacks? If this father doesn't fight with you on the street, you might have something to compensate, but I don't. If you have the guts, come with me to the Eternal Night Dueling Tower. I will let you know that without relying on the women of the Su clan, you are nothing. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.